Wait for it.
That's correct.
There it is. How's it going, everybody? We're just about ready for today's show. Ben, why don't you tell everybody what's in store for today as I prepare for today's live broadcast?
Other than the fact that they'll get to see you looking exquisite in your tie.
I'm looking very dapper today. We got the show banner showing right
They call him Dapper Dr. D. That's what they call him down in Alton. They used to call him White Lightning.
What's on the show today?
Oh, I'm sorry. People tuning in to hear Monroe Anderson, you'll not hear him. He's not here today.
No Monroe, guys.
Yeah, no Monroe. He's on vacation. Hey, who told Monroe he could go on vacation, huh? Whatever, I'll tell you what. Anyway, enjoy your vacations. Robert Herguth will be here from the Chicago Sun-Times. We'll be talking all things sleazy in the southwest suburbs. The Sun-Times has been all over that story, corruption in the southwest suburbs. Sergio Mims will be in here. He'll be sort of our substitute for Monroe in terms of Trump, and more Trump. The co-founder of the Black Harvest Film Festival has got a lot of opinions on Trump as we face this constitutional crisis. Donnie's not turning over anything to Congress. And then Carlos Ballesteros from the Chicago Sun-Times will be in the studio. The new reporter at the Sun, not that new, but first time he'll be on our show talking all things Chicago politics. So a lot of political talk ahead of us, young man.
A lot of political talk ahead of us, everybody. So it's going to be a fantastic program. And I'm still just about ready here. I'll give a shot of me. Look at me, huh? All dapper.
Is he looking good? Man, ladies and gentlemen.
Is our okay, our camera's looking
You are
fine.
Looking good. Looking good. All right.
I had to go to court today. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. You got to pay those parking tickets, all right?
I don't drive. All right, everybody. Your Ben Joravsky show for Wednesday, October 9th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring our program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8. And no, I know what you're thinking. Not Aerosmith. That's a band. This is a union, all right?
Walk this way. Sorry.
That's okay. Get it out now before the show starts.
Walk this way.
There we go. We're getting through. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and bringing back our program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky show. See that right there? Today's Ben Joravsky show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Wednesday, October 9th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, we're talking the FBI files with the Sun-Times' own Robert Herguth. Also from the Chicago Sun-Times, it's Carlos Ballesteros. And making his long-awaited return, director of the Black Harvest Film Festival, the one, the only, Sergio Mims. And now your host, the one, the only, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Dapper Dennis Wednesday. No, not really, but he is looking dapper. Folks, check him out. Good. Is that John Travolta over there?
Okay, John Travolta has hair. I'm bald. Hi.
Is that Denzel Washington over there?
He's a black man. I'm a white man.
Man, you are looking so good. Anyway, we are actually calling this Gotta Give the Guy Credit Wednesday, and here's why. Yesterday, President Donald Trump made it clear he's not going to cooperate in any which way with the congressional investigators into the scandal known as Whistleblower Gate. He won't recognize congressional subpoenas. He won't allow aides to testify, won't turn over documents, just not going to cooperate in any way. He's going to keep it all to himself in a wild, weird sort of way. You got to give the dude credit. I mean, if you are going to raise your middle fingers to the laws and the law enforcement officers of this country, don't beat around the bush. Raise them high.
Wait,
keep them high.
Are you giving Donald Trump credit?
Yes.
I'll
give
pack
Donald
the
Trump.
bags. It's the last day here at the Sun-Times.
Give Donald Trump credit. You know, if you're just going to say, beep you to all the laws and all the people who enforce the laws, then go ahead. Do it, all right? If it was a TV show, he'd be like surrounded by police and he'd be going, "You're going to have to take me out alive."
What would that TV show be titled?
That would be called Dr. D Looks Dapper Today. It's a great show. You'd be wearing a tie. It could be Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke is what it would be. Gunsmoke. The FBI, The Fugitive. How about that? I could do my Mannix. How about Mannix? Does anybody remember Mannix? Anyway.
Hang tight, millennials.
All right. All right, folks. Let's just go back in time to remind you this all began with a complaint from an unknown whistleblower said that Donald Trump was effectively shaking down the president of Ukraine. Trump was asking the Ukrainian president to dig up dirt on Joe Biden, Donald Trump's chief rival, apparently, at least in Donald Trump's mind, in the upcoming presidential election. And in exchange for digging up dirt on Biden, Donald Trump would release the $300 million or so dollars in military aid that Congress had already approved for Ukraine. All right. Trump has essentially admitted that's what he did. He released an account, not a word-for-word transcript, but an account of a phone conversation he had with the Ukrainian president. It went like this. I will not imitate Donald Trump. I'm not Dennis or Pat Whalen, who does a very good Donald Trump imitation, I must say. Donald Trump, we've done many good things for you. Now I want you to do something for me. Dig up dirt on Joey B. That's essentially what he said. And it sure sounds like a shakedown to me. Not everybody agrees. The Chicago Tribune, the Chicago Tribune says, well, we're not quite sure if it's a shakedown or not. It could be, maybe, who knows? Oh, well, we'll think about other things like castigating the teachers for daring to go on strike. Anyway, but sure sounds like a shakedown to me. And the Democratic congressmen, the congressional leaders have launched an impeachment inquiry. And as a result, they want Donald Trump to turn over evidence. They want to turn over various documents. They want him to. They want to force some of his aides to testify. And Donald Trump said, "Nope, not going to do it. This is just your ungodly attempt, unholy attempt to try to undo the election of 2016, and I am not cooperating in any way." Now, what do the Democrats do? How do they respond? What do the public make of it? Do the Democrats just bend to the will of the more powerful man and say, "Oh well, that's how it goes. Can't make them do it," and just walk away from the investigation? That's kind of what they were doing with the Mueller report, D, if you recall. Until Whistleblower-gate emerged, all the talk of impeachment was fading away. Nancy Pelosi was letting it die down. People were just sort of going back to their business, thinking in terms of just defeating Donald Trump in November 2016.
That's correct.
As though the whole thing didn't matter. Are they going to do it again? I don't know how they could back down, but it sure looks as though it's going to be very difficult to get Donald Trump to comply in any way. I don't know how you have an investigation if you have nothing to investigate. Most likely there will be court challenges, and this will go all the way to the Supreme Court. My bet is that every single judge leading up to the Supreme Court will side with Congress and say that the president does not have the right to stonewall and ignore subpoenas from Congress. But once you get to the Supremes, different story. Donald Trump appointed 2 of those justices, if you recall, and my bet is they're very loyal to one Donald Trump. So I could see the Supreme Court finding some reason to side with Donald Trump, and it essentially assertion, his right to give 2 middle fingers high, raise them high in the air to Congress. And ultimately, then, the decision will come down to the American voters in the 2020 election. I just want to remind you, folks, this is the same group of people who got us into this mess in the first place. Here's hoping this time they get it right. We got a great show today, everybody. Robert Herguth will be here from the Chicago Sun-Times talking about corruption on the Southwest side.
Oh, and if you want to hear Ben Joravsky geek out, keep it here for that interview with Herguth. My goodness,
yeah, the FBI
he loves
files.
talking FBI files.
Sergio Mims is here already. God bless Sergio Mims, the co-founder of the Black Harvest Film Festival. We'll be talking politics. We'll be talking movies. Monroe Anderson is not here today. He's on vacation in Hollywood. He went to L.A. I'm not making this up. Yes, he did.
Without our permission.
Without our permission and without really telling me. Monroe. Anyway, Sergio Mims is more than capable of talking Trump, and Trump. So get ready for some Trump talk with Sergio Mims. And then Carlos Ballesteros will be here at the end of the show. Chicago Sun-Times reporter will be talking politics with him. So politics of all kinds, national, local, and state. But before we do any of that, the young man from Alton, Illinois, and I think Sergio will agree with me. He is looking very dapper today. I thought it was John Travolta in the studio, but apparently it's a young John Travolta from Welcome Back Kotter days. That's what I thought with that great tie. The young man.
I found this for $2 at the thrift shop.
Damn, that's a good deal.
I know.
I gotta get over to that thrift shop. I'm gonna put a dress code on the Ben Joravsky show from here on out.
You're screwed.
Everybody has to wear ties because you're looking really good. All right, Sergio, where's your tie? Get a tie, Sergio. All right. Anyway, without further ado, Dr. D with the news.
All right, I'll be expecting you to wear a tie tomorrow as well, Ben. Right?
Very unlikely.
Oh, okay. Just set the rules. Rules for these, not for me, says Ben Joravsky.
And Donald Trump.
All right, let's unpack the news happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. No Wednesday public events scheduled for our Illinois Governor, J.B. Pritzker. So, Ben, it's like 1:12 in the afternoon on Wednesday. Pretty nice day out. What do you think the governor's doing right now?
What is the governor doing? Well, is his leg okay?
His leg seems to be doing fine.
So he doesn't have to rest his leg?
No, he's up and at it.
He is probably listening to the show.
Okay.
That's what he's doing. Because
you need
huge
both
fan of
legs to do
Sergio
that.
Mims, so he's listening to the show, getting ready to hear about Dolomite.
I like how you asked if his leg was okay.
Yeah.
And then, he's listening to the show. You need both legs to listen to the Ben Joravsky show, apparently.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's listening to this show.
Okay, nothing else, huh? All right, no Wednesday public events also for Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. What do you think Lori Lightfoot's doing now?
Right now, she's definitely listening. She's listening to yesterday's Stacy Davis Gates interview.
I'm
when
sure
she's finally
she is.
catching up on yesterday's. She's not happy with that interview. You see that little steam coming out of her ears? She is not happy with that Stacy Davis Gates interview. These Chicago teachers, why don't they just shut up and go away?
Well, now there may be steam coming out of her ears, especially if she's listening at this moment.
That's what she's thinking.
We do have more updates on the potential Chicago teacher strike, but first, another alderman in the hot seat?
Oh, boy.
It's another episode of everyone's favorite non-existent Chicago political soap opera. It's the latest struggle between a mayor and her alderman. And I said the hot seat. And when you hear the story, that pun was not intended, okay? But I did say the hot seat. And when you have an alderman in your city council currently being indicted for such acts as shaking down a Burger King, hot seat may be a bit of an overstatement because this is nowhere near as bad as shaking down a Burger King. We're headed to the 49th Ward for today's episode. Ben, pop quiz. Who's the 49th Ward alderwoman?
Come on, Maria Haddon.
Oh, man.
Who was before Maria Haddon?
Ice Cube.
Jolton.
It's my guess for everything.
Joe Moore. And who was before Joe Moore?
Dr. Dre.
Oh, how did you know?
I'm telling you.
There was that phase of his life where he just decided, you know what? I want to be the alderman of the 49th Ward. So he came to Chicago. And in between making rap records and producing Eminem, didn't know I knew that, did you?
Oh, my goodness.
Huh?
I'm telling you, you can get a lot of things past me, but this guy, Ben, oh, no, nothing gets past Ben Joravsky.
Wait, hold on. I got a trivia question for you.
All right, lay it on me.
Here we go. For 10 trivia points.
I look smarter. Maybe I'll be smarter with my tie.
Who is Tyler Blevins?
Tyler Blevins?
Yes.
I don't know.
That is not the correct answer. I'm a little astounded that you don't know this.
I don't know who Tyler Blevins is.
He is goes by the name Ninja. Ever heard of him?
No.
This guy is a gamer. I didn't even know this existed. I'm a little embarrassed to admit.
Oh, okay. So Gilmore Girls was last week. This week it's games. Gaming.
And this is a guy who has, are you ready for this? 14.7 million followers on Instagram. 14.7.
How many do we have?
We cracked 1,000.
Oh,
okay?
That's actually not bad. That's actually not bad.
Dude.
I think they're going to say like 50.
14.7 million Americans, or I don't know if it's Americans, 14.7 million followers on Instagram, a gamer. Do you even know what a gamer is?
Yeah, someone who plays games and gets paid for it.
Yeah. Wow. And last week we were interviewing Monroe's son, Kyle, who's about to come out with his game. I could see why he's doing it. 14.7 million followers. Anyway. I just discovered Tyler Blevins, and I don't feel so bad. You, a millennial, have never heard of him before.
Yeah, you're really coming a long way, especially last week when you learned Mario's brother's name.
Bobby?
No.
What was Billy?
It's Luigi.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Luigi.
Anyway, Gilmore Girls. Ask Sergio what he thinks of Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, please do. We got to know about that. All right, Maria Haddon. All right, can't get anything past Ben Joravsky. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and the one and only Fran the Woman Spielman. Alderwoman Maria Haddon of the 49th Ward is apologizing to the Chicago Firefighters Union Local 2 for her chief of staff's insensitive Twitter takedown of Alderman Jim Gardner of the 45th Ward that ended up infuriating rank-and-file firefighters. The squabble between freshman aldermen began when Haddon's chief of staff, Leslie Perkins, tweeted a newspaper story about Mayor Lori Lightfoot putting Alderman Gardner in his place. Now, for a little context, if you recall, a couple of weeks back, Mayor Lightfoot pretty much handed Gardner his lunch when she defended her decision to hire the guy Gardner beat, former 45th Ward Alderman John Arena, with a $129,996 a year job in the Department of Planning and Development. I guess Jim Gardner was under the impression that after defeating someone in an election, the other person doesn't get to continue with life at all. They just sit at home unemployed, sulking about it forever. What? He can't continue on and prosper? So Gardner was a little salty after that. And as for Leslie Perkins, well, Perkins served as 45th Ward Alderman, former 45th Ward Alderman John Arena's chief of staff before making the switch to Maria Haddon. Oh, and also Jim Gardner, former Chicago firefighter and EMT. All right, now to the tweet from Perkins regarding Lightfoot handing Gardner his lunch here. Perkins wrote, quote, "Everyone that shares this gets to hear the same joke. I wonder how a firefighter feels about getting burned so badly," implying burned when Lightfoot said that to Gardner. Burned so badly. There you go. So the Chicago firefighter community was upset by the tweet and labeled it insensitive. Now some of you may be thinking, come on, that wasn't so bad. But enter Reverend Thomas Mulcrone to maybe change your mind on that. All right, Mulcrone was so incensed by the tweet that he fired off a letter to Haddon warning that her, quote, standing with members of the CFD and, dare I say, first responders will be non-existent if she does not address this matter with serious consequences for Perkins. Here's the quote. "Have you any idea of the pain and suffering the firefighters go through when they are burned? Do you know that the scars, both physical and emotional, remain with them for the rest of their lives?" On Tuesday, Haddon acknowledged Perkins' joke was offensive to firefighters and never should have been tweeted by your chief of staff. Here's the quote from Maria Haddon on her staff member Perkins. Quote, "She's sorry. It was a stupid comment. She wasn't really thinking. We've been in communication with Local 2, making sure they understand. She's making a written statement of apology. No words from Mayor Lightfoot on the incident, so it looks as though, as the moment, she will serve no detention time and will keep her position. But when it comes to the city of Chicago, you never know, because after all, this is the daily ongoing battle between
a mayor and her alderman. Brought to you by the 14th Ward Burger King."
Ben Joravsky, your thoughts?
Well, it was a pretty offensive tweet, and it's interesting. I don't know why aides to aldermen tweet stuff out anymore, because it's just going to cause more attention for their boss. Once you go to work for an alderman, it's sort of like you got to be quiet and, just go into the background because the alderman or the alderwoman in this case is the boss, and he or she will bear the brunt of anything you do, and they'll be accountable for anything you say, even if they had nothing to do with it. So I do think it was an insensitive remark. That said, I'm not sure the firefighters were as offended as they say they're offended. I think there was just an opportunity for get some good digs in between getting back at John Arena. This is a former aide to John Arena, and of course this fight goes back to 45th Ward aldermanic battles that go on. So, listen, in general, my rule, D? Anybody under the age, what was it? 50?
50, yeah.
Anybody under the age of 50 should not be allowed to tweet.
Still holding on to that rule,
I'm still holding on to that rule. But my guess is that Maria Haddon's aide is under the age of 50, so she's allowed to tweet. But, we talked about this yesterday. The notion of free speech, D, it's like there's always accountability for what you say. Someone's going to get irritated at you. They're going to strike back at you. It's going to get a person in a position of power mad or put them in a delicate situation. And we're seeing this happen with the National Basketball Association. in China, where the general manager of the Houston Rockets tweeted out support for the Hong Kong protesters, and all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, and China's now, not airing games, and there's NBA games, and there's talk of banning products, and the NBA is going to pay a price financially for this. So there are consequences. Just don't have unlimited free speech rights. It may not seem that way when Sergio Mims comes on this show and says whatever's on his mind.
The views and actions of Sergio Mims do not reflect those of the Ben Joravsky Show. Got that out of the way.
We should make that clear up front from the get-go. And we should also say it does not represent that of the Black Harvest Film Festival as well. But, there are consequences for just speaking out. And in my humble opinion, the joke was offensive and not bright. But I think Maria hadn't handled it very well. And now we can put it behind us, right, Dave?
Water under the bridge.
Yeah, and Lori Lightfoot just sort of dodged that one. I mean, that was really a fight. That's really a story of an alderman and her alderman. If you know what I mean. But yeah, Lori's like nowhere near that. Don't touch me with that one.
Well, I think with all that's happening right now between our mayor and the Chicago Teachers Union, and maybe this Maria Haddon thing is way at the bottom of her list. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's got bigger fish to fry.
And speaking of, wait, hold on. This milk thing, we got to turn the buttermilk thing over. Hold on. Hang tight, everybody. This looks like we got buttermilk sitting there. It's a missing thing.
Oh, yeah. Peter Janko will be coming in the studio this Friday. He gave me that missing. Yes.
He was fired and then he's missing. Get it? Yeah. And now he's rehired. It's a joke now. All right. And speaking of, we have an update on the potential Chicago Teachers Union strike. Opening a new front. Well, this comes from.
Did they cut a deal?
No deal has been cut.
Right.
The big update that we're all waiting for.
They cut a deal. When you say you have an update, I go, deal cut?
No, not that update. Just more side updates, I guess. This comes from CBS Chicago. Opening a new front in the ongoing contract dispute between Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Teachers Union, Mayor Lori Lightfoot complained that the union is holding up negotiations over demands on affordable housing policy. In a statement Tuesday night, Lightfoot said that the union's contract with CPS is, quote, not the appropriate place for the city to legislate its affordable housing policy, but CTU responded Wednesday morning that 17,000 students in the district are homeless. This is a quote here from the CTU statement on Facebook, yet Lori Lightfoot insists on mocking us instead of discussing the housing needs of those students and their families. We have more from the CTU statement on Facebook here. I'm just going to go ahead and read it. We have nearly 17,000 homeless students in CPS, yet Lori Lightfoot insists on mocking us instead of discussing the housing needs of those students and their families. Our contract proposals demand CPS hire staff to support CPS families in danger of losing their housing and advocate for a program that financially helps our RPs and new teachers purchase a home. The mayor finds them, quote, unreasonable.
Yeah, well, who knows what was actually said behind closed doors during those negotiations, but clearly Lori Lightfoot saw an opportunity to get a dig at the Chicago Teachers Union and play on a theme that's her favorite theme, the one that she and her supporters have been articulating, and that theme is this. The Chicago teachers are not really interested in reaching an agreement with them. They just want to go on strike. They want to go on strike because they want to prove they're powerful. They want to get vengeance for the Tony Preckwinkle loss, whatever. They want to bask in the glory of having presidential candidates come to Chicago. I've heard every single explanation along these lines to sort of trivialize and marginalize the issues that the Chicago teachers are raising. I think as a communication strategy by Lori Lightfoot, it has been very effective. I'm very interested to see what Sergio Mims says about this. On the north side of Chicago, I find very few people who are sympathetic to the teachers. Now, on the north side of Chicago, I got to tell you, I'm just going to precede this. I didn't find many people sympathetic to the Chicago teachers back in 2012. So the Northsiders in general have have an attitude where they're with the mayor on this fight. I'm curious what Sergio has to say about how Southsiders view it. If there's a difference depending on where you live or your background, et cetera, and so forth. So I think it's a very effective communication tactic by Lori Lightfoot, and on that standpoint, I give her credit for like in a PR war. But I think it's a legitimate issue. 17,000 homeless kids in the Chicago public schools. You're asking the Chicago public school, of all the issues that the Chicago public schools have to deal with, that's a pretty important, daunting issue. Just imagine if you're a teacher or a principal and a child comes into your school in the middle of the school year from some completely other part of the city. You have to welcome that child. What if your class is already overcrowded? How are you going to deal with that? Is there a counselor on hand to try to help the kid adjust to a new environment? Like, there could be gang issues that the kid has to deal with coming into it. So these are very real problems that teachers and principals and counselors and nurses face. In my opinion, the city of Chicago does not want to address this in a meaningful way, and they just want to keep the focus on money. We're offering you X amount of dollars. If you don't take it, you're selfish and greedy. And this is a line that you will find parroted in the Chicago Tribune on its editorial page, Sun-Times editorial page, and it's very popular on the north side of Chicago. So to finish the point, when people read this story in the Sun-Times or the Tribune, on the north side, they'll be going, oh, those teachers. Why are they raising this issue? I like Lori Lightfoot. I voted for Lori Lightfoot. So it's a great PR strategy, and I got to tip my hat to Lori Lightfoot. But in terms of dealing with the issues that teachers are facing and kids are facing in the public schools, not much help.
Now, maybe it's just me. Perhaps I'm reading the wrong websites, but it seems like the media has plenty of coverage on the mayor's perspective on this ongoing battle between the Chicago Teachers Union and the mayor. So to hear the teachers union's perspective, well, we suggest you check out our interview yesterday with Stacy Davis Gates, vice president of the Chicago Teachers Union. It's available for download at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download podcasts. If you haven't heard it, Ben, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about this interview? How was your talk with Stacy? What did you take from it?
Well, the thing I urge everybody to check it out, but what Stacy Davis Gates addressed a couple points right up front was whether this was a payback time. I asked her about that directly. Are the teachers just trying to redo the election of 2019 of April, where they unsuccessfully backed Tony Preckwinkle and were defeated? Is this just their attempt to redo that? Are they grandstanding? So we got into all those issues, and Stacy Davis Gates, I thought, gave some pretty strong responses. I don't want to give too much of it away, D, because you know what? I want people to listen to that. I learned that from you, all right? You went to radio school, and you're wearing a tie.
My God, you've come a long way, sir.
So, you know what, folks? Just listen to Stacy Davis Gates yourself. And by the way, she has a few things to say about the Bears. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
She ripped the Bears.
Oh, my God. All of you guys loved the Bears.
God, the Bears are terrible.
Right before week one, all you guys were, bear down. I love them.
You know what? That's something that Stacy Davis Gates and Lori Lightfoot both agree. Bears suck.
Okay, well, maybe we can get some unity there with that simple thing. All right, and for those keeping track at home, we are only 8 days. We have 8 days until the union strike deadline, and also for those keeping home, adding to the list of Lori Lightfoot's ongoing city problems, I believe we're keeping track of this here on the Ben Joravsky Show. We are now at problem number 8 billion.
Okay, she wanted to be mayor.
She wanted to be mayor. I know.
That's billion with a B.
So there you go.
Billion with a B, which rhymes with P, which stands for pool, right here in River City.
Still doing that every time we play that clip, huh?
I think Sergio Mims knows what movie that's from. Sergio may be the only guy in this room who knows. Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
okay.
The lead was?
Robert Preston. Come on, man. But who played Miriam the librarian?
Oh, this is great.
Wow.
My favorite part of the podcast, when Ben talks to people without microphones.
That is Sergio Mims.
This is great audio, guys.
Robert Herguth is in the studio as well. We're going to take a deep dive on corruption on the southwest side. Man, we're going to talk about the cigar shop that is in the southwest suburbs. And then after the show, Sergio and I are going to head over to that cigar shop and smoke some cigars.
All right.
Yeah, so we got
big
Herguth.
Cigar guy.
Yeah. This is a pretty funny story. It's not funny like we should ignore it funny, but it is kind of funny.
There you go. We got Herguth in studio. He's going to be coming up. We're going to be talking FBI files. Ben's going to be geeking out. My God, he loves talking about the FBI files. And, hey, we were just talking about him earlier. Ben's apparently not a fan anymore, but If you are a fan of the Chicago Bears, you need to check out the latest podcast from the Chicago Sun-Times. Add it to your listening lineup this football season. Get the inside scoop on the Chicago Bears with Hallis Intrigue. It's the latest podcast from the Chicago Sun-Times. You could tune in to hear Sun-Times sports reporters and Bears experts. They evaluate games, make predictions, provide insights, and analyze the day's big stories. Stay informed this football season and listen to Hallis Intrigue at suntimes.com/Hallis. That's suntimes.com/HALAS. And be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Check it out now at suntimes.com/Hallis. Isn't that right, Robert Mueller?
That's correct.
Don't go anywhere. The Ben Joravsky Show will be right back live from the Chicago. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Cameron Esposito.
Everything that I have ever tried to do has had two motivations. One is I really do believe in trying to create social change, and then the other one is I'm scared and alone too, so I would like for you to join me. You know, every job that I have, I try to make sure to hold the door open. That's like my motto for like if I get through, you're coming with me, and I believe in that wholeheartedly, and especially if I have more privilege than you, like I'm holding the door open for you even wider.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th for 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Robert Herguth in the studio with me, Chicago Sun-Times investigative reporter Sergio Mims on deck. We're going to bring him on in about 15 minutes. So there will be Trump talk. There'll be plenty of Trump talk. But I saw this story by Robert Herguth in the Sun-Times today and Mark Brown's column, and I just had to bring him in to talk about it. First of all, folks, you go, Robert Herguth. Isn't that geeky guy who's utterly obsessed with FBI files? Yes, same Robert Herguth. He was in this studio about, what was it, a month ago, Bob?
A few weeks ago.
Yeah, we did like an hour on FBI files. I share his obsession. This guy has been collecting FBI files, filing the FOIA requests to the FBI, proving to the FBI that in the case like somebody born in 1850 is actually dead or whatever. Sometimes this FBI is stubborn, and then you take the files and you put them on you download them so people can just read them on the Sun-Times website.
Yeah, we got a database.
Database. Thank you for that little technical. By the way, for 10 trivia points, do you know who Tyler Blevins is?
No.
Okay.
Is that a speed round? No.
No. Okay. He has 14.7 million followers on Instagram. He's a gamer. Do you know what gaming is?
Oh yeah. I think I do who this guy is.
Ben just found out about gaming at like 10:45 this morning.
Ninja is
Pinball
his
machines?
nickname. His nickname is Ninja.
He's from Gray's Lake.
Yes.
Yeah, I know who he is.
How did you know that?
I know his real name though. I got kids.
Wow.
So it turns out he knows more than you about the person you trivia.
I knew he was from Gray's Lake too.
Total homer, man. Anybody having to do with Chicago.
I wonder if he has an FBI file, but you won't know because he's still with us. All right. Really fast before we take the deep dive in the southwest suburbs and all the corruption going on out there. Do you have any new additions to the FBI file that we should know about?
Yeah, and just quick primer again for those who aren't aware, this is called the FBI Files. It's on the suntimes.com website. It's a database that we've been building for a couple of years and just launched a month ago, and we've got more than 100, probably 120 at this point, FBI files on 120 different people, most of whom are deceased, which is when a lot of them become public. And when Ben and I talked last, we've added a few since then. Fred Rohde, the alleged mob alderman from Chicago. I've got a couple of his files, not all, but I've got some files that are up there, more to come. Jane Byrne, the first woman mayor of Chicago who died a few years back. I've got her file, or at least part of it. And some guy arrested in a drug sting back in the 80s with some Chicago cops. His is up there. And then most recently, I've got Rudy Lozano. I've got his file. These files vary from a page, to, thousands of pages, tens of thousands of pages. And his is real slim. It just sort of notes his demise back in the 80s. And Rudy Lozano, I mean, you know better than I, that he's a community activist and, labor organizer, community organizer, and who was murdered back in the 80s, sort of a iconic Chicago figure. And anyway, so I have some of his paperwork that's going to go up soon. It's not up yet.
Yeah, Rudy Lozano was a community activist and a labor leader, as you were saying, and he was a Harold Washington ally on the Southwest side in a Hispanic area, and he was probably would have been elected alderman and committeeman, but he was killed. I remember when it happened, Bob, it was such a shocking thing. It seemed like a gang hit, and it was one of those murders like Ben Lewis. I don't know if you know who Ben Lewis is. He's the alderman from the 24th Ward in 1963. And these murders, public figures murdered, cold-blooded murders, never get solved. And then it just kind of leads into all the cynicism that people have about our system. Like certain hits are too people behind the hits are too powerful and important to be prosecuted, and so they go unsolved. Are there any clues whatsoever to who might have killed Lozano in the file?
No, I mean, wasn't somebody convicted though of it? Wasn't somebody arrested?
It was like a gang type thing, yeah. But so many people have this sense that there was a political hit behind it.
Yeah, I don't know honestly. I breezed through it. I haven't put it up yet. I'm going to comb through it later, but I just wanted to flag you that we got a few pages at least, and hopefully kind of root around and see if we can get some more out of them.
All right, well, let's get to the Southwest side. I know you have things to do. We got to get you out of here, and there's Sergio Mims sitting on deck to bring him on. But it's your ultimate man cave, Southwest Suburban Cigar Lounge, a favorite hangout for politicians tied to federal investigation. It was a pretty, in its own Chicago way, a funny read about these politicians on the Southwest suburbs hanging around the cigar shop somewhere. Tell folks a little bit what's going on. Let's just lead people through. We've been talking about this in the show. Marty Sandoval is probably the most public person in this investigation, but help people understand a little bit what's going on here.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, this is a story that I did with Mark Brown and John Seidel, John Seidel being our federal courts reporter, Mark Brown being our stellar columnist, investigative reporter, and just, great guy. And the three of us did this story. It was in today's paper on the front page. And so it's just the latest story that we've been doing on what's going on in our political world here in the Chicago region in terms of a corruption investigation or corruption investigations, plural. I'm not really sure if all of these are interrelated, but they seem to be in some way. There are nexus points between them. And so this story that we did today was about this cigar lounge, this upscale, swanky place that I can say this because I went there to check it out. And this is a sort of a nexus point between a lot of the guys that are getting looked at by the feds right now in the southwest suburbs and southwest side. It's in countryside and sort of near southwest or west suburb, and it's this big cigar place with cigars might cost you $100, and then there's a lounge a VIP lounge in the basement that you have to access through an elevator and a special keypad, and then you get down there and there's these like what appear to be leather backed, maybe it's fake leather, maybe it's real, I don't know, but really nice like booths like out of some like nightclub back in the 50s, and dim lighting and a really nice bar and wood trim, and the back room for privacy for whatever. I guess you can hold a meeting there or something, or who knows, and TVs, and you can sit there and smoke your cigar. Recently, guys were in the basement, sort of quietly pecking away at laptops, and then while smoking, and then upstairs you can buy stuff, and this. So it's just it's this business, and we discovered and wrote about today that it's got these connections to all these guys who are getting looked at right now by the feds, or at least have connections to guys getting looked at by the feds, including Sandoval, who's I believe gotten campaign contributions from that company, from that cigar lounge, but also more than that. Some of these guys like Jeff Tobolsky, the Cook County Commissioner / McCook Mayor, whose office was raided, his village office, 2 weeks ago, and who's gone like totally dark and underground since. He was a regular there, chumming around with a guy who the FBI is asking questions about, a guy named Omar Mani, who is an investor in SafeSpeed, which is a red light camera contractor with dozens of Illinois communities, and he also is part of a construction or development type company that's gotten taxpayer money to develop low-income housing in Cicero and in Summit. So sort of kind of gritty, just, contracting kind of things. And this guy, we know that the feds have asked, for instance, Summit, which is another little southwest suburb, its mayor, about this guy, Monty, and some of his, and SafeSpeed, and this company that did low-income housing. And so Monty is, at least was regular at this place where he'd entertain and socialize with a number of politicians, including Tobolsky. And of course, Getty, whose office is in Lyons, nearby, were also raided.
The mayor of Lyons.
The mayor of Lyons, who has a private insurance company on the side, like a lot of politicians around do, and which was also raided. So he was there, and then Larry Dominick, the town president, aka mayor of Cicero, was hanging out there, and also spent something like, according to the campaign records, $28,000 over the past few years from his campaign fund at the cigar lounge for at least in part apparently cigars, but also, I don't know, event space. It's just, it's not real specific.
Those are expensive cigars.
Yeah. and then also John Cullerton, again, he's not been implicated in anything I want to be clear that I know of, but he's there was a fundraiser, at least one fundraiser was held there by Jeff Tobolsky for John Cullerton, who would not return any of our phone calls yesterday to talk about this.
President of the Senate, State Senator John Cullerton.
Whose distant cousin Tom Cullerton was, has been jammed up in another leg of this presumably same investigation, who's also a state senator, and again, whose colleague Marty Sandoval is also, had his home and offices raided recently. So, it's this interesting aromatic nexus point as we describe it. It doesn't mean that the cigar business has done anything wrong. We're not saying that. At this point, it's kind of a curiosity because this guy who some people believe is now cooperating with the federal government, this Omar guy was a regular there, and then all these politicians who are, at least some of whom are targets apparently of the feds, were also chumming around there. So that's the story. You mentioned the humor in it. I mean, they're back, cigar, smoke-filled back rooms, and is the image of Chicago politicians dating back a century, and here we are in the 21st century, and it's in this instance sort of true, right? Although I think the ventilation there is very good.
Well, no, when you mentioned Fred Rohde, he was the alderman from the first ward, and he was convicted of some kind of corruption. I can't remember; it's been so long. But the place where he would meet, there was a restaurant across from City Hall, and the feds had a microphone, I think, in the Sugar Bowl. I think that's where they had the microphone. And so that was kind of out in the open, more or less. It was a restaurant. Anybody walked in could see Fred Rohde sitting with his compatriots talking. But now, that's what I'm saying. It was kind of funny. It's interesting. Sergio's here. We're probably going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's movie that's about to come out about corruption in the labor movement. Well, this would be like the ultimate setting of a movie about at least corruption in the southwest suburbs, the cigar lounge. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All right. So we've been reading articles in the paper for the last couple of weeks, Robert, about FBI raids on various offices, agents coming out. You always have pictures of the agents carting. And I don't have a clear sense exactly where they're heading with this. Help us out a little bit. What do you think the FBI in particular is looking for? What do you think the ultimate source, the ultimate subject of these raids are?
I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows except for them, and maybe not even them, because this is ongoing. I mean, I think they know where they want to go, but I don't know if they're going to get there, and I don't know if they know they're going to get there. But what we know is that they've been asking questions. They've been, there's tea leaves to read here, and also we do know some specifics beyond that. For instance, Safe Speed. This red light contractor that has deals with these different towns to basically split revenues off paid tickets. How they get into that town and process fair and, legal for that matter. These are some among the questions that I think are being asked. And to be fair to Safe Speed, they've said we've done nothing wrong. We have not been contacted by the feds. We have not been subpoenaed as of a couple of days ago when I talked to the CEO. So, there's no allegation that they've, done anything wrong. So I want to be clear, but questions are being asked. So they are definitely part of this investigation. Safe Speed, this red light group, but also this Omar Mani's other company called Presidio is been a focal point of some questions as well. So we know that, but that's just, I think that's just one angle of this larger, octopus.
Well, there's one quote in today's paper. I'd love you to take a deeper dive into it. It's from Mark Brown's column, Red Light Probe puts spotlight on old problems and why tolerating them is NA, and that NA being not applicable. And you're quoted in the story, you were talking to a top aide to a Cook County commissioner, and that top aide, Doherty, told Sun-Times reporter Robert Herguth that he receives, quote, a small percentage, unquote, from, quote, every ticket that's paid in certain communities that use Safe Speed systems. Explain what's going on there.
Well, Mark's column, and Mark, again, is, I think he's a premier, columnist in the city. He's really, he has hit sort of the nail on this one in some ways, which is this first of all, we've got the whatever crimes may have been committed, and we've got the players involved, but you have this larger backdrop here, highlighting and accentuating these existing problems that thinking people know exist. For instance, just the structure of our very government has been a problem. Township government, you go on the sidewalk and ask 10 people what it is, and maybe one person will know. Okay, and yet they levy taxes, right? They spend a lot. A lot of these people can get pensions and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, so he mentions the township government because some of the players, some of the people who are tinged by this or, are being questioned or at least eyeballed. For instance, the supervisor of Worth Township down in the south suburbs, so he's a township official. So it's like, it's sort of highlighting this sort of little known and, in a lot of minds, completely unnecessary form of government that is, taxing us all. So that's one thing that Mark's column, I think, touched on. And then the second thing is these, economic or these ethics forms that government people have to fill out, and disclose outside income and blah 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 blah. And on the surface, it's sort of like, well, disclosure and transparency, that's all you need. Then you can have these outside forms of income, and yet, at least for a couple of these people who are being talked to by the feds, they were consultants for for Safe Speed, and it wasn't disclosed to our knowledge, at least not every year, on their forms. And maybe it didn't have to be, fully, but certainly there's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And, we've come across this before with, I remember Dorothy Brown, the circuit court clerk, who's been under federal investigation now going on 6 years, I think, based on a story that I did with Dane Placco and a couple other people about a land deal. That she was basically handed a piece of land, and in essence, and it was never disclosed in her forms as a gift or on her other forms as a campaign contribution. Well, which is it? And it's like, it seems to be it's one or the other, but that's never been really fully determined, and it was it's never been fully disclosed by her, at least initially, along those lines. So it's like these forms are are sort of haphazard, and you can fill them out, and even if you don't, what are the repercussions?
Yeah. And is anybody paying attention? And I talked about this. I'm not going to put you in the hot seat. I'm going to put Sergio in the hot seat on this one. But it's interesting. I think I mentioned this to you. I'm watching all the FBI tightening the noose, if you will, around these Southwest side and Southwest suburban politicians, and you don't know where the investigation is going to lead, and they got subpoenas, and they're going into their offices, and they're raiding, and they're carting out files. And meanwhile, we have the President of the United States raising two middle fingers high to congressional investigators who are coming after him and saying he's not going to honor subpoenas, and he's not going to allow his aides to testify. And it does seem like there's a kind of a double standard that exists when it comes to investigation. Some people get away with an awful lot. So I'm not going to put you on that hot seat. Robert's like, don't ask me about it. I'm just an investigative reporter at the Chicago Sun-Times. Bob, before we let you get out the door, one more time, give folks the information if they want to check out those FBI files. I'm sure I'm not the only person out there who would be obsessed with the stuff that's in there.
Well, it's suntimes.com. If you go to the sort of the homepage and look at the categories and click on more and scroll down, you'll see them. You click on that and access them, and we've got a bunch of stories, database, and it's a constantly growing affair.
Well, I tease this guy because he has an obsession of filing, and he's filing these FOIA requests, but I really, one more time, appreciate what you're doing with it and applaud it. I had fun with it, and the one that I wrote about, the Mike Royko file, was interesting because this is notion that there would be like these quote-unquote, I don't want to call them stool pigeons out there, but concerned citizens who would be writing letters to J. Edgar Hoover complaining about a column that Mike Royko wrote. And they go, you should be aware of what's... Like the FBI didn't have an agent in Chicago reading the newspaper on a daily basis. And then J. Edgar Hoover would respond. It's all in the file to the informant, or not informant, to the citizen. Thank you for your letter.
Yeah.
We share your concern, what have you, et cetera. Good stuff in the FBI files. Thank you very much, Bob Herguth. Appreciate your work. Appreciate you coming here. We got Sergio Mims coming on, and we'll be right back after this.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Get to know your city on one of Chicago Architecture Center's 65 walking tours. Hear the unforgettable secrets and stories behind Chicago architecture from our expert docents. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a tour right now. Oh, wow, look at that building. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident.
This is an awfully big body of water. We're looking for a needle in a haystack. And we're talking about a needle that moves constantly.
He's checked the floating traps he hand curated.
Right now it's a combination of drumsticks, rats, and smelt.
Yum.
Well, as far as the gator goes, that's a pretty good offering. We're hoping that the wind blowing the scent across the water will catch his attention.
We're all speculating on whether he grew up in somebody's, bathtub or backyard or something.
He's enjoying the 5 feet of water. He probably was raised in 6 inches. If we could find the animal, we can capture the animal.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F, M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
He still loves that Jeff Manuel, and who wouldn't? Fantastic pianist. By the way, no other show than the Ben Joravsky Show will you hear a clip of Alligator Bob and then a Jeff Manuel commercial. Just saying. You can search far and wide. You won't find it, all right? Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, October 9th is moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions once again for sponsoring this program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, and, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Wednesday, October 9th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, he's been waiting patiently, and he is here. It is Sergio Mims, director of the Black Harvest Film Festival, and from the Chicago Sun-Times, we welcome Carlos Ballesteros. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Sergio Mims in the studio. Before I bring him on, I'll just read this little description of Sergio that is from the New City. He's honored as one of the 50 important people in the city of Chicago when it comes to that's why his picture is in here and everything.
Oh my! Oh, page 45. I remember he told me.
44.
44. Sorry.
Sergio Mims, a mainstay in the Chicago film scene for nearly 4 decades, describes himself. I know.
When did that happen?
4 decades, man. When you're not paying it, you're about as old as I am, Sergio. Sergio, a proud graduate of Kenwood High School.
That's right.
And from back in the 70s. For nearly 4 decades, describes himself, quote, simply as someone who wants people to know and appreciate films more and then maybe explore more on their own and discover a whole new world. Yes, indeed. He was co-founder of the Black Harvest Film Festival, and my favorite film festival in the city of Chicago.
That's correct.
And he is also a very opinionated...
Even Robert Mueller agrees.
Yeah, Robert Mueller agrees. Very opinionated young man and good friend of Monroe Anderson, who is vacationing in California. So we're going to continue the Trump talk in Monroe's absence. But before we do that, D, you got an update for me, young man?
Absolutely, I do. And I'm going to go to the camera here because Sergio is on page 45.
Oh, excuse me.
I mean, if we want to go back and forth.
A clarification there.
If we want to go back and forth on this, we will. But let me show everybody, all the live stream viewers, this picture of Sergio. Sergio, I like this shirt, man. Looking sharp.
Yeah, he's looking very sharp.
Let me show everybody. Hold on.
By the way, did you notice that tie that he's wearing? Very nice tie.
I know.
He's looking very dapper today.
Goodness.
Yeah, there you go, huh? Sergio's looking good. Dennis is looking good. Everybody's looking good at the
So he's going to a wedding.
Yeah.
Actually, Ben, you're wearing a nice shirt. That's a nice.
Well, now he's got the new nose.
Yeah.
Nose jokes. Yes.
It was a brutal month for me when it comes to noses, man.
Look at that Geraldo.
All right, so let's do this update here. Illinois.
After that fight.
Oh, Geraldo. Hang tight, millennials, please. Hang tight. I remember that fight, though, that Geraldo fight.
It was a chair, wasn't he? Hitting the
Yeah,
head
he
with
got
a
hit in the face with
It was brutal. It was brutal. All right, Governor J.B. Pritzker and the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity have released a 5-year plan to create an economy in Illinois that works for everyone. To expand. Oh, wait, they have not only is it a 5-year plan, it also has 5 plans.
Oh,
that's
wow,
pretty cool, right?
Is that 25? 5 times 5?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Carry the one. That is 25.
I just
Did you go to the Daniel Biss Mathematics Academy?
Yes, I did.
All right, let's find out this first plan.
Daniel Bass.
Number 1.
The first plan to expand prosperity throughout the state. That's not bad. How about number 2?
Number 2.
The plan is focused on fostering job creation. That's a good one. What about our third one?
Number 3.
Improving wages.
I could, yeah, I'm all for that.
Number 4.
Building greater equity. And finally,
Number 5.
attracting and supporting businesses.
All right, it sounds great. Let's see the specifics of that, see if any of it happens. But good for him for thinking the good things, right, D?
Absolutely.
Putting out good vibrations into the atmosphere.
Oh, wait, what's that, J.B. Pritzker?
I'm not a perfect person.
I had a feeling he was going to say that.
I had a feeling.
I hear he's got a sale on toilets.
Yes, he does. All toilet jokes.
Sergio. Sergio.
Yeah, he's got
Nose
where'd you
jokes,
get
toilet jokes.
Where'd you get your little bust of Harold Washington?
This was a gift from someone here at the...
From our good friend Hector, Ben Joravsky Show Facebook friend Hector Ivan Garcia. Thank you very much for that, Hector.
My favorite mayor. So there you go.
Is it true I read that Rauner sold off his Illinois properties?
I do not. He sold his house in Winnetka, but he also, as you know, had I think 2 condominiums in downtown Chicago. 2, not 1, 2.
But I know he had 9 homes.
Yeah,
in the country,
and I think they overlook Millennium Park, right?
Yeah,
isn't that correct?
He's got 2 condos in the same building.
Yeah, because whatever.
Why? Because he's got the money.
Yeah.
Why?
So yeah, why not?
Yay for our teachers!
Yeah, there he is,
Yay
Bruce
for our
Rauner.
teachers!
So Bruce Rauner, you know how they said James Brown has left the building, or was it Elvis has left the building?
Elvis left the building.
Elvis has left the building. Well, Bruce Rauner has not left the state. Oh, I have something to ask you. I didn't put down. I need to know your Sergio Mims. We're going to get to a lot to talk about with him: Trump, movies, etc. And teachers. As I said, I want to know what your thoughts on the pending teacher strike and how it's playing in your neck of the woods, as opposed to how it's playing in my neck of the woods. But Sergio Mims is a proud resident of Hyde Park. I think you've lived your whole life in Hyde Park, pretty much. And he is a graduate of Kenwood High School, which is right there. Well, it's on the border between Hyde Park and Kenwood. And so as such, you've been to the Museum of Science and Industry a few times in your life.
Oh, I know what you're going to bring up.
And now, the Kenneth Griffin Museum. Your thoughts, please.
Just a lot of ego polishing. Look, who was it who created it? Julius Rosenwald?
That is correct.
He didn't put his name up. And there are a lot of buildings and institutions here that he founded in which you don't know, because it was not an ego thing. He cared about community. These kids today, they get a little money, they want to put their name up everywhere.
Yeah.
He was still going to call it the Museum of Science and Industry. You call the Sears Tower still the Sears Tower.
Yes.
I do. People still call Sox Park Sox Park.
Yeah.
Or
Comiskey Park, yeah.
Right? Nobody calls it guaranteed rate field. He could put his name up on it and he can brag all about it, but it's still always going to be to us, a true Chicagoan, the Museum of Science and Industry.
All right, now do you blame the people who operate the Museum of Science and Industry for selling off the naming rights for $125 million, or do you think they were sold?
Wait a minute, is it going to be called Kenneth Griffith Museum of Science and Industry,
yes,
or now the Kenneth Griffin Museum?
No, it's called I believe it's called the Kenneth Griffin Museum of Science and Industry.
People can still call it Science and Industry, Museum of Science and Industry.
Yes,
regardless.
That'll be part of the thing. So, like, if you're a poor,
biggest donation they ever got.
Is it?
To my knowledge, I don't think they've ever gotten that kind of money before.
I don't. I think you may be right. The biggest.
Right.
So, finish your point.
I can understand that. To them, it's not a big thing to put his name now in front of the museum, because, as I said, we all know everybody's still going to call it the Museum of Science and Industry. It will always be that.
Well, look at it this way. How much money would it take to get someone to be the Kenneth Griffin Black Harvest Film Festival?
Oh, about $750. I don't know.
Don't say that, because the check's coming. Griffin, I want to be known. I love black movies.
And by the way, welcome to the Kenneth Griffin Ben Joravsky Show studio.
Of course. Of course.
I'm holding out for $200 million, all right?
Oh, wow.
It's like... Lincoln Center is a David Geffen.
That is correct.
But everybody still calls it Lincoln Center.
Yes.
Yeah, no, New Yorkers always call it Lincoln Center.
Somebody was just talking about Lincoln Center on this show. When was that? Somebody was talking about, I can't remember, but yes, you're right. They were talking about the Lincoln Center.
Right.
Oh, it was yesterday. Adolfo, who's in the studio, the only person I know who's seen The Irishman, we'll get to that.
Good, he must have seen it in New York.
He saw it in New York, part of the New York Film Festival. He told this elaborate story and how expensive it was and what he had to do to get it, the ticket. And I was very envious of him because he got to see it. But he called it the Lincoln Center, did not call it. But I believe that Geffen, my memory is that when he negotiated that deal, the deal he negotiated required his name to remain affiliated with that with that center forever, even after he's gone. Now, I don't know if the same deal exists with Ken Griffin and Museum of Science.
Oh, David Griffin.
No, Kenneth Griffin, the head of the.
No, I'm talking David Griffin with the Lincoln Center.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is I don't know if Ken Griffin cut a deal with Museum of Science that would allow his name to exist forever in connection, or as soon as he has left this earth, even gazillionaires leave the earth sooner or later, will they have the right to take the name down? I do not know the answer.
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm sure it's a contractual thing. I was irritated about it. Not so much that Ken Griffin tried to do it.
To me, it was a minor irritation, but isn't he a big Republican donor?
He is indeed. He's the largest donor, contributor to one Bruce Rauner. I believe $36 million. He also gave
a close friend of our friend Rom.
That is correct. He gave a lot of money to Bill Daley. I believe he gave $2 million to the Bill Daley campaign. Did a lot of good it did for Bill Daley. He finished.
Who's Bill Daley?
Bill Daley ran for mayor of the city of Chicago, younger brother of Baby Daley.
Daley.
Yeah.
Oh.
You got to put the headphones on.
No, I thought you were saying, it sounded like you were saying Bill Bailey.
Oh, Phil, no, why don't you come home, Bill Bailey? No. So he gave $2 million to William Daley in the last election.
I call him the Fainting Daley.
And why?
You don't remember when he got that? It was when he was working for Clinton. It was in the Clinton administration, and they were introducing him, and he had a fainting spell, and he dove into the audience.
I don't remember this.
Look it up. You can find the video.
Yeah, the Fainting Daley.
I call him the Fainting Daley.
That was nice. Anyway, so Kenneth Griffin, Museum of Science. All right. Oh, what news do you have for us on the movie front? Anything news you want to break for us?
Go see Dolomite Is My Name. I can tell you that right now.
All right, tell people a little bit about that movie.
Dolomite is a great comeback for Eddie Murphy and for Wesley Snipes. And it tells the story of Rudy Ray Moore. And I'm proud to say I still own a whole bunch of Rudy Ray Moore LPs. They were never released on CD, but I still got the LPs.
Tell our millennial listeners.
Rudy Ray Moore was a guy who was on the fringes of show business. He tried to be a comedian, he tried to be a dancer, a singer, and then in the early 70s, he created this character called Dolomite, who was like the ultimate pimp. And he started doing these shows where, portraying this character, he would tell basically what were sort of folklore tales about he was the baddest pimp in town, and dirty jokes, just really raw dirty jokes, and they were based in the humor of the streets with pimps and prostitutes. And he became a sensation, and then he started making albums, what they call party albums, like Eat Out More Often and Dolomite for President. And we're on a podcast, right?
Yes, we are on a podcast.
You're like, This Pussy Belongs to Me. I have that one. I can't find it yet. I got it.
You have it, but you can't find it?
Yeah, I got others. I posted on Facebook. I got, okay. And they were hits, right?
So did you buy them in real time?
Yes.
Young Sergio Mims?
Yes, because I couldn't stand Cosby.
A scholar a scholar at Kenwood Academy was buying Rudy Ray Moore albums?
Because all the other comedians, Cosby's not funny. I wanted Red Fox, Moms Mabley, Richard and Riley. You remember them? The guy, he was on Ventriloquist. Blowfly, I like the dirty comics.
So how did
like
you find your way to these? I vision you like in the scene in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where there's that comedy store. Have you ever seen that TV show?
No, I've heard of it.
You should definitely watch that. Anyway,
I like The Deuce. You ever watch The Deuce?
I've not watched The Deuce.
Okay.
That's on my list of things to watch.
It's the final season.
I just finally got around to watching Gilmore Girls. It takes me a while. I'm always a little behind. But no, The Deuce by David Simon. Anyway,
right.
I have it on my Netflix to send it in the mail, so I'm going to get that soon. All right. Anyway, but so how'd you find your way to these records? Where'd you find these blue records?
Well, as I recall, I remember a cousin of mine had them, like Red Fox and stuff, and I knew someone else who had these records. And when I started hearing them as a kid, and I'm talking about a young kid, maybe it was 10 or 11.
Your parents played them?
No.
How did you hear Red Fox records when you were 10 years old?
Well, because I knew people who had them, and older people, and that's the kind of humor I like.
Yeah.
And I said, well, this is what I like. You see, I was advanced for my age.
Yes, you were.
And
I would say so.
Dude, I've heard Blowfly. How old were you when you first heard Blowfly?
Oh gosh, at least 12.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was advanced for my age. So this is the stuff hey, look, when I was in high school, I read 120 Days of Sodom. Was in high school.
Yeah.
Marquis de Sade. You want to read a book that's really depraved.
It's depraved. Yeah.
I was I was of a different mindset.
Yeah.
Of a different mindset.
Yeah.
So, which explains a lot.
I was going to say,
So, that's the stuff I gravitated to. And then when I discovered Rudy Ray Moore, it was like manna from heaven. I said, this is it. This is what I live for in my life. So, and then he started making these really terrible low-budget movies.
Now, when he made them, was he the director, the writer?
No. He just starred in them. Now, he improvised a lot and it was basically all his own stuff. He was not an actor. These movies have no pace, no story, but they're funny as hell because it's Dolomite being Dolomite.
Yeah. Now, tell people who Dolomite is.
Well, no, it says Rudy Ray Moore, this character he created, right?
Yeah.
And so this movie, Dolomite is My Name, is written by Larry Krasinski and Scott Alexander. And they specialize in writing movies about fringes of Hollywood. Like they wrote the People vs. O.J., the miniseries. They wrote Ed Wood, right? The Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
And this movie literally is the black Ed Wood. Or Ed Wood is the white Dolomite is My Name.
Yeah.
So, right, these people who have this dream of making movies, but they have no talent, but they have this burning desire. And they go ahead, despite all the odds, totally outside the studio system, with no money, go out and make a movie. And they were hits.
So how did they
the
get
Dolomite films were hits.
They made money.
Oh, yeah. They used to play here in Chicago at the Woods Theater. Remember the Woods Theater?
Yes, I remember. Tell people where the Woods Theater is.
It was over on Dearborn and Randolph.
Yeah. I saw a few movies. I think I saw a couple Rocky movies at the Woods Theater.
They used to play a lot of United Artists movies.
Yeah.
I know.
Was Rocky through United Artists?
Oh, yeah.
And I definitely recall seeing a Rocky a Rocky movie or two at the Woods. So wait a minute. So if Rudy Ray Moore, did he make these movies outside of the studios?
Completely.
So how did he finance them?
Well, in the movie, he basically got it from the record company who are making monies off these records he was making. And then he just scrimped and scraped and, raised the money. I mean, we're talking super low budget, right? And then whatever these movies started making money, then he would put that money back to the next film. But they never spent any money on these
they made money.
Yeah.
And so these movies were coming out when you were in high school, correct? Or was it right after you came out of high school?
No. It was in high school. Yeah.
All right. So one of my favorite little themes is about how in Chicago there's a racial line. Mm-hmm. There's the black side of the line and the white side of the line.
Yeah.
It's been that way since I came to town, Sergio. And pretty much white people do not know what's going on the black side of town, except for a hand of white people who are curious, okay, and look, all right?
Right.
So in your neck of the woods, with your friends, the people you sat at the cafeteria with, the people that you hung out on weekends, did you guys actually look forward to Rudy Ray Moore movies when they came out? You were actually like gonna wait.
I don't recall that. I was into movies, period. So I saw everything, right? I don't recall. Yeah, but I assume they were talked about. But once again, I told you, I was reading Marquis de Sade.
Some weird stuff. Nobody was reading that, black or white, on either side of the line.
Well, I was reading that stuff, right? So, I was...
So
I had the whole thing going on.
You have appreciation for what they call high culture and low culture.
Oh, yeah.
We don't talk about this, but Sergio has a radio show. It's all classical music. Mm-hmm. He's an expert in classical music. That's how I met him, actually, because my show came on after your show.
And you would be still doing it?
What's that?
Still doing it?
You're still doing the show every Tuesday,
yeah. 12 to 3.
And
WHPK.
And then so it's just like this very erudite show with classical music. You knew how to pronounce all the names. I was always impressed by that.
You mean Deutsche Grammer von Gesellschaft?
Oh, wow. Yeah, like that name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey,
and at the same time, you know who Rudy Ray Moore is.
I enjoy all the meats of our cultural stew.
All right. Well, that's a big chunk of meat. Hit up the bong on that one. All right. So going back to, so now we know who Rudy Ray Moore is and his significance as a cultural figure back in the early 70s when he started making these movies that somehow or other found their way to the Woods Theater. Because think about that. Whatever deal had to be cut to get.
Well, the movie goes into that, how he made the deal to get these film shows.
I see. Okay. Don't want to give too much of it away. But what makes this movie, which I'm really... you said it opens this weekend. I can actually see it.
Yeah,
on the
it's
big screen.
Netflix movie, but they're opening up theatrically this Friday. It's not going to get a big release. I don't know how many theaters are going to play in, but it does open theatrically across the country. Then in mid-November, it'll be on Netflix. Actually, it just should be a theatrical film. It looks fantastic.
Okay.
They really captured the period of the 70s really well with the clothes. Even the photography, it looks like a 70s movie. And it's just terrific. And what it is, it's a simple underdog story. Everybody loves an underdog story about a guy who beat the odds. Mm-hmm. And Eddie Murphy, by the way, in a way, don't read what critics are saying about it. No, it's getting rave reviews, right? But white critics don't know anything about Rudy Ray Moore. To them, this is all new. I saw one guy, this is weeks before the movie came out, thought that Rudy Ray Moore was a fictional character that Eddie Murphy is playing because he's a dumb white guy. So anyway,
he put that in print?
Yeah. I don't want to say the guy the name.
Don't say his name.
No, he's not in Chicago.
All right.
But they don't know.
Yeah.
This is a truly black cultural thing. If you don't know, if you're from a certain generation, I bet even millennials, even black men, don't know Rudy Ray Moore. If you're a black person of a certain generation, you know Rudy Ray Moore.
Well, he was on the fringes. He was on the fringes. He was on the fringes of blaxploitation. He was on the fringe. He was not. If you had a pantheon of 5 or to 10 great stars or the blaxploitation era of the 70s, I don't believe he'd be in that top 10.
No, he wouldn't. But
so you'd have to even a black kid growing up in the 70s would have to be a little
maybe right
out there to know who he is.
It's because somebody, I read one review, this was NPR, saying, well, Eddie Murphy doesn't look like Rudy Ray Moore and doesn't sound like it. That's not the point. He captures the spirit of the guy and what he did and what he tried to achieve in his very limited way. I mean, with limited means, what he achieved. And he was a success. He was an absolute, he passed away a few years ago, but he was an absolute success, in his, contained world. And they even show in the movie how party records were made. And for those of you who don't know, party records were the expression used for these sort of albums, dirty albums, blue humor by comedians, Red Fox and LaWanda Page. I listened to all that stuff as a kid. And they were called party albums because what they would do, sometimes they were recorded in a nightclub, but most of the time what they would do is they would rent a house or a room and people would pay money. It was sort of like a party. People would pay money, and then the person would come out, the comedian, and do their routine. And it'd be a sound man in the back in a toilet or in a closet recording it, which is why the sound quality was never great, the best. But they were called party albums. And there's a scene in the movie where they show him doing one of those party albums. And I said, yeah, that's what it was like, and he captured that.
You're just whetting my appetite. My only question is this a movie that you think warrants being seen on the big screen, or is this one of those movies that you could just watch it on the boob tube?
You really seem to be on the big screen. It looks great. It's a movie. It's not a TV movie. It's not one of those cheap, TV films.
All right.
This is like a movie.
Okay, I've asked you this before. I'm going to ask this to you again. You're a movie man. You run your own film festival, or you're part of a group that runs a film festival. What's your attitude about the dispute, if you will, between people like Steven Spielberg and other directors who feel as though that you're degrading a movie by sending it straight to Netflix or sending it straight for TV streaming?
Well, Netflix and these other streaming services, they have become essentially the new B movies for the most part. Before then it was direct-to-video. Actually, they still do direct-to-video movies. And then before that, there was the TV movie of the week. Mm-hmm. And before the TV movie of the week, you had B movies.
B movies.
And that's what it is now. They're basically B movies. Now, they're spending a lot of money on them.
I would not say Roma is a B movie. Roma went directly. Roma was one of the greatest movies of 2018.
I agree with you. Roma was fantastic.
And it went straight to Netflix. I think there was like a week or two where you could have seen it.
Scorsese's new film was made for Netflix.
Yes, it was. But he cut a deal. It's going to be on the big screens for at least a month. Now, am I correct in that?
Yeah, something. It should be longer than that. It's a 3.5-hour movie.
I know we talked about it yesterday with Adolfo. I'm waiting with bated breath. Now, let me ask you this. Does they have the right... people have asked me this. I don't know the answer to this. Do they have the right? Does the distributors of the movie The Irishman, which was produced by Netflix, have the right to hold it in theaters even after it's been released to Netflix?
Sure, it's their movie. They can do whatever they want. They paid for it.
But what doesn't Netflix? Wouldn't they be upset by that because wouldn't they want the movie exclusively shown on their streaming service?
Well, it's getting kind of muddy now. It really is. I can understand where Spielberg is coming from. What he's basically saying is we're losing the movie experience. I understand that. It used to be a special event to go see a movie. Now, with streaming services, I talk to a lot of younger people saying, I haven't been to movies in a long time. I watch everything streaming.
You know why? Because they're cheap.
Right.
CHEAP.
Well, the millennials, they got no money. They're working as baristas.
Please do not go anywhere, millennials. He doesn't mean that.
No. They got money for something. It's like, it's like teachers in the city of Chicago. There's always money for something. They just don't want to spend it on teachers in the city of Chicago.
I was talking to someone, and we were talking about how, I'm going to bash millennials again. They complain that they're doing these low-paying jobs. Mm-hmm. I graduated from college. And I was like, so did I.
Yeah.
We all did really loud. Boy, you should see the jobs, some of the really lousy jobs I had after I graduated from college.
All right.
They were low-paying.
Leave millennials alone. Some of my favorite people are millennials. I want to get one, before I head off into local politics and Trump, your take on the Joker. I've not seen it yet. Hate it. As in HATE. Explain why.
I think it's a crummy picture that just doesn't have a point of view. If we don't learn anything about Joker, if that was ever the intent at all in the movie, I think, what's the guy's name? Joaquin Phoenix is terrible in the movie. I don't know why I'm hearing all this stuff about he's brilliant, he's genius. No, it's oh, shut up.
Wait, is that your imitation of Phoenix?
Well, I don't know. It's just like,
that's him laughing?
I hate to see actors when you see them acting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see they're putting the effort in it. To me, acting should be natural. Like, yeah, that's the way people would act. Don't try to force it. And that's what he's doing all the time in the movie. The movie is ugly. This is a movie for people who have never seen a Martin Scorsese film but want to pretend that they have. Like, you never seen Taxi Driver? Well, here's a really subpar version of that. You never seen King of Comedy? Here's a really subpar version of that. Now you can pretend you actually seen a Scorsese movie, even though this movie is a craptacular, as I called it.
Whoa, Sergio Mims rips the Joker. I just want you to know, Michael Moore was extolling its virtues to the high heavens. It's the greatest movie experience. I didn't have it.
Come on.
I'm just telling you what the man said. I've not seen the movie, but now you've answered a question for me. I'm going to go see Dolomite this weekend.
You know what it is? It's something else, too. I think that, the person who raved about it, does he like comic book movies?
I do not. Michael Moore, the director, Michael Moore.
Michael Moore.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael Moore's some more.
All right.
Michael Moore. I gave him a Michael Moore a long time ago.
There went that Michael Moore interview.
I gave him a Michael Moore a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just saw his. He was exclaiming the virtues of the movie. I wasn't planning to see
Man of the Common People who lives in an exclusive penthouse in New York City.
I think that's the same Michael Moore. All right, let's switch gears. Talk a little politics here. Let's start local. And
by the way, too bad he's not here. I want to apologize to Monroe Anderson because I always poo-pooed him when he's always talking about Trump and impeachment.
Yeah.
And I always poo-pooed him. I said, get out of here. They ain't going to impeach him. They ain't going to impeach him. They ain't going to impeach him. They did. Now, it wasn't for the Russia thing, which nobody understood. The reason why this work, the reason is everybody understands this. For a scandal to work, people have to understand it.
Okay, but what about the latest? Or I'll push local politics to the side for the moment. Deal with since you raised it. Donald Trump, I talked about this already, has announced that he is not cooperating in any way with the impeachment effort.
Of course he would.
He's not going to release records. He's not going to release any kind of documents. He's going to instruct his people who work for him or have worked for him not to testify. Why, by the way, they have to do what he tells them. I do not. That's a whole other issue. They can show up if they want to.
True.
Last I looked, it was a free country. And so he is essentially telling them, disobey the subpoena you get from Congress. So he's giving, as I said, 2 middle fingers high to the investigation and just letting the court of public opinion decide. And he's confident that he will be reelected, even if he's openly defying subpoenas. Even if he's saying that I am above the law, most people in this country will agree with me, or at least with our insane system of electing president, I can win an electoral victory again. Do you think he is right to assume that he has the authority to openly defy subpoenas, congressional investigators, and still get elected?
I think there is a shot he can get elected. I really do.
Even openly defying?
I sure do.
Go a little further. Why do you say that?
Because his appeal, one of the main reasons his appeal, they always say he fights, right? Trump represents all those pissed off white guys who always felt that they were excluded out. Back in high school, politics is high school. I remember years ago when Clinton was president, somebody said the reason why so many conservatives hate Bill Clinton is because he reminds them of that slick-talking guy in high school who got out the cheerleaders. And I said, yeah, that's why they don't like him. It's high school. Donald Trump represents to them that guy who was always excluded out. He was never part. He was always laughed at, and then all the black guys were getting the white chicks in high school. So they really were pissed off, right?
Yeah.
And he they feel like...
Was that the way it was at Kenwood?
Yeah. So nobody touched me. I was reading the side. But anyway.
But he wanted to... That's the crazy guy reading Decide.
And it's and
listening to Rudy Ray Moore records.
Rudy Ray Moore. I was really yeah, but that was his appeal. That was still his appeal, right? That he's fighting for us. The woe begone white guy who's never gotten a break in his life because everything went to everybody else, right? So of course he's going to defy that, whatever order, because they don't like it. Look, Trump was never part of the Manhattan elite. He wanted to be. He was from Queens. He didn't go to the right schools. He didn't know the right people. He was crude. He was uncouth. And he was never part of that Manhattan scene. And he always resented that. And on top of that, he was broke most of the time. How many times he went bankrupt?
Yeah.
It's funny. I was reading an article about Jeffrey Epstein.
Could talk about that a long time.
This was in the latest issue of Vanity Fair. And this woman who knew him and people who hung around him, and she said all the models wouldn't go near Donald Trump because he was broke all the time. They considered him a laughingstock. And so Donald Trump there's always been revenge for him. Now, I believe that he never thought, well, there's a debate about that. Did he actually believe he was going to be president? There are people who say he really didn't want to be president. He didn't think he was going to win. But he did win, And by the way, please tell Hillary Clinton, shut her mouth. I'm sorry. She's talking again.
Now, why do you say
Don't
that?
Say that. Because she said something recently like maybe there should be maybe I should run. No, I should run again, but maybe what would happen if we ran again? Don't say anything. Just go away. Go away. Are you on the payroll of the GOP? Go away.
But as I recall, you supported Hillary over Bernie in 2016. Am I correct?
No, I supported Bernie.
Oh, okay. I sit corrected.
I supported Bernie.
Are you still supporting Bernie?
No. He had his shot 4 years ago. Now, he had the heart attack. And, his daughter-in-law passed away yesterday.
Oh.
You didn't know this?
I missed that.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, his daughter-in-law suddenly passed away yesterday.
Oh, my goodness. Things are piling up.
Yeah, things are piling up on him. But when he had the heart attack last week, I said, that's pretty much it. I don't think he's gaining any traction or anything. And he said yesterday that he's going to cut down on personal appearances and everything. But yeah, his daughter-in-law passed away.
I did not see that.
So it's been piling on him yesterday.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I had to have to pause here and say this about Bernie. We had a couple Bernie supporters on the show. What was it, on Monday, D? Miles and Micah were extolling the virtues of Bernie Sanders. And it just seems as though in a bizarre way, Sergio, that progressives or lefties, whatever you call us, can't catch a freaking break in this country. I mean, Bernie Sanders articulated every single ideal and value that a true lefty has. He forced the Democratic Party to at least play like they're paying attention to him.
I'm telling you, I believe it on my heart. He would have beat Trump 4 years ago, no doubt. Hillary put the shiv in him. It should have been a fair fight. And instead of her with all these super delegates and everything, it should have been a fair fight and let the best person win. But if he was on the ticket 4 years ago, he would have beat Trump. No doubt about it. No, to now, 4 years later, he seems like leftover bread. It doesn't wash anymore. It's now between Biden, who I wish was 10 years younger and sharper, right? Biden and Georgina McGovern. I mean, Elizabeth Warren.
He loves that Georgina McGovern line. All right, what's your problem with Elizabeth Warren? You were bad-mouthing her in a text to me the other day.
Yeah, but Georgina Warren, give you an example. You remember when Hillary Clinton said in a speech that she wanted to close down all the coal mines?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the exact quote, but that was
okay.
Yeah, it was. There was a theme in that, a similar theme.
Yeah,
I don't think that was the exact quote, but continue anyway.
But that's not what you. Okay, coal is dying. We all know that. Look what's happened. All these. It reminds me of an article in the New York Times. Maybe you saw it. I'll get to that about West Virginia, Pennsylvania. But coal's a dying industry, right? But that's not what you say to people, okay? Elizabeth Warren wants to end fracking. Okay, now you can argue, okay, fine. But you're not going to win Pennsylvania. That's a big industry now in Pennsylvania is fracking. So for her to say that you want to lose Pennsylvania again, you got to be careful. I mean, this sounds like you got to make compromises. That's what politics is. It's compromise. But you can't say things like that. You got to be careful. And still, there is that persnickety, school marmish, high school principal thing she's got that I think turns people off. Okay, let me put it this way. People have the perception that she's talking down to them or schooling them. You have to relate to them. You can't, do that. It's not going to work. You're going to turn people off. And I'm thinking, and I've been thinking about those the last few weeks, I said, if she is the Democratic candidate, this is going to be George McGovern time.
Well, you think that if Elizabeth Warren is the Democratic candidate, that will be overwhelming electoral, and it wasn't just electoral. I think Nixon got close to 60% of the vote. I mean, it was
Nixon destroyed McGovern.
Yeah, I do not in any way believe that that would happen. I don't care who the Democratic nominee is. I don't believe Donald Trump will get a majority of the vote. In fact, I believe any Democrat who runs against Donald Trump will get a majority of the vote. Now, we get to the Electoral College and how Wisconsin goes and how Michigan goes and Pennsylvania goes.
Right.
There's a lot of factors at play. I understand all that. But there's no way. In fact, I believe that whoever runs against Donald Trump will get more votes than Hillary Clinton, will win by a greater margin.
I don't know. We'll see. I tell you this. If whoever's the Democratic candidate, I would just run in Pennsylvania, Michigan,
yeah, absolutely,
and Wisconsin.
Yes, learn from
everything else can take care of themselves.
Yes, and so that's why I'm not so quick.
I will go after Colorado.
Well, that's like where Donald Trump would go if he wants to go after the Democrat state. But I believe this. I don't think anybody will play around this next election.
Forget Florida.
I wouldn't
forget Florida. And, forget Texas. I know people are saying Texas is more purple. Forget Texas.
It depends who your vice president.
I'm going for Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Colorado.
All right. Now, listen, before I let you go, and Carlos is in the studio ready to come on, I have to ask you the question I raised when you first walked in, and it popped into my mind. And when we've been talking a lot about the pending Chicago teacher strike, I make no bones about it. I believe that the teachers are making some very valid points.
Well, the thing about homeless,
you heard me talk about homeless high schoolers.
Is really how can you disagree with that? Now, two things.
All right. Now, so as I said, but the PR front on the north side of Chicago among white people on the north side of Chicago, I'm seeing and hearing the same things I heard in 2012 with that. Why can't they just get along? And their sympathies are with the mayor. Their sympathies were with the mayor in 2012, by the way. They rewrite history, like make all these people like they were out in the streets with the teachers. But most of the white people that I talked to on the north side, I'm just breaking it down, Sergio, were pro-Rom. In your humble opinion, your neck of the woods, lifelong Hyde Parker, Kenwood High graduate, still live on Hyde Park, still take that green line and are shocked when you see white people at the 63rd Street. Your boy, Buttigieg.
What?
Yeah.
What that happened?
So how do people in your neck of the woods view this?
Well, particularly in Hyde Park, pro-teachers, pro-union, pro-teachers. Even though, did she carry the award?
No.
No, Preckwick could carry.
Lori Lightfoot carried every ward in the city of Chicago.
Wait. Fourth Ward. I live in the Fourth Ward. I live right in the edge of the Fourth Ward, which is still technically Kenwood. Yeah. Okay, I'm a block away from the Fifth Ward. Okay, who carried the Fifth Ward? I can't recall.
It was, I believe, the Lori Lightfoot carried every ward in the city. Young Dennis is
she carried every ward. Okay.
I said he's looking it up. He's like, I'm not looking it up.
Right, but the pro teachers. Right? Now, two things. First of all is that Lori Lightfoot is doing what every politician does. You know, when a union's going to go on strike, you act tough. Because the image you want to give is that I'm going up against the spoiled people, spoiled, overpaid brats who get everything. And, you know, it's a PR thing, right? At the same time, I can't imagine Lori Lightfoot wants to make the same mistake that Rahm did. The teacher strike. You remember when Rahm had that teacher strike? And then he was like using obscenities against, Karen Lewis. She doesn't want to make that kind of mistake. All she has to do is don't be Rahm.
Yeah, and she's clearly not being Rahm.
Right.
So she's not, raising a middle finger to the teachers, and she's not telling the leaders of the teachers, F you, the way Rahm said to Karen Lewis, a fellow graduate of Kenwood High, I might add.
She was.
A few years ahead of you. So your sense of it is that in your neck of the woods, folks are a little more enlightened and have a little greater appreciation than on the north side of Chicago, where somebody, I don't know, come on, Ben. And then they always ask me, Ben, can you do something? Like I got some sway with the teachers.
Well, because, Fifth Ward, Fourth Ward, Fifth Ward, it's progressive.
All right. Good to hear that. Good to hear that there's at least one neck of the woods where somebody in Chicago cares about the teachers. Sergio Mims is his name. He's the co-founder of the Black Harvest Film Festival. We're going to take a break and bring Carlos on. And when Sergio returns, I guess you're going to come back in a month. Pretty much a monthly visitor here at the Ben Joravsky Show. We have some updates on Black Harvest Film Festival.
That's still too early.
All right, still early.
It's about January.
But I will say this. One of our most popular bonus features, to my amazement, is the roundtable we did on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I want to do that again.
We're going to do it again. I haven't decided. I think we're going to do it with the Martin Scorsese movie with The Irishman. I think that is going to be worthy. Although Dolomite, I may get a blaxploitation panel.
You got to get Lee Bay on.
Lee Bay, Lee Bay.
He wants to promote.
Wait, all right. We'll talk about that later.
No, I'm sorry. I just started because I got to interview him tomorrow. Right.
Very good. That's Sergio Mims. I'm Ben Joravsky. Carlos Ballesteros is on deck. We'll bring him on when we return.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. They're located at 6241 North Broadway in Chicago. And people, they are amazing. 773-942-6522 is the phone number. They're open Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. Sundays, 12 until 7 p.m. Take it easy, Sergio. Have a good one. The one person in the world who didn't like that Joker movie, Sergio Mims. Oh, he's complimenting me on my tie. I'm wearing a tie today, everybody. Yeah, looking sharp, I guess. The one person in the world who didn't like the Joker movie, Sergio Mims. Green Element Resale. Now, why did I give you the phone number? Why did I give you the hours? Well, let me tell you why. Because I'm looking at this website right now, greenelementresale.com. They have so much stuff, all right? I can't even name all of the things that they have at Green Element Resale. I'm looking at pictures right now on greenelementresale.com. I'll tell you what I see. I'm going to pull this. Oh, my. Does anybody need pillows? Anybody listening need pillows? Ben?
I need a pillow.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm looking at about 20 of them right here at greenelementresale.com, all right? Okay. Plenty to choose from. Green Element Resale. It's between Devon and Granville, right off of Broadway. So go check it out. Stop in. Say thanks for sponsoring the Ben Joravsky Show. That's awesome. It's Green Element Resale. Check out that big, cool van that they got as well, and find more information at greenelementresale.com. elementresale.com. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Sergio Mims has left the room. That was a great conversation, if I must say so myself.
Yeah.
We just started that Dolomite thing. D, I don't know if you had any intentions of seeing the Eddie Murphy movie.
I love Eddie Murphy, so
I know Carlos. You an Eddie Murphy fan?
I am, and I just saw the ad for that movie. I didn't know it was coming out.
I really didn't either.
He that was just a great deep dive. Only Sergio Mims could do that. He the knowledge he has about Rudy Ray Moore, who is the character that Eddie Murphy portrays in the Dolomite flick, and that opens here in Chicago, and I will definitely see it. Sorry, the Joker. I was going to see the Joker this week, but thanks to Sergio Mims, that's out the window, and I'm going to watch Dolomite. I'm very impressionable, D, you might say. Do you have any updates, or should I go straight to Carlos?
Hey, find us on Facebook, social media, if you've yet to, at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on both Facebook and Twitter. We live stream the program. If you're listening to this on the download, check out the live stream. Get a load of some days we dress up nice. Today's one of those days. I got a tie on.
You're looking awesome.
Oh, buddy. Hey, thanks. Don't get used to it. I'm going to look like crap tomorrow. Back to business as usual tomorrow, all right? Do not get used to it. I got my hat and my backpack. I'm ready to just get back to normal old Dennis. But no, at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. And the big announcement that we made yesterday, if you've yet to hear the news, First Tuesday, well, Ben has a new co-host starting November 5th. The one, the only, our Chicago Reader colleague, Maya Dukmasova. It's going to be awesome. So Tuesday, November 5th. Put a new coat of paint on the First Tuesday show a little bit. Same old Ben, but Maya Dukmasova will be joining Ben. So, yes. Hey, go check out the First Tuesday, November 5th.
Yeah, my dear friend Mick Dumke, who I did the show with for 5 years, said, I've had enough. And it is, you got to get the guests and whatever and set aside the time. And so I appreciate Mick's decision. I love him dearly. Still a good friend of mine. But I like doing it. So I said, I'm going to continue. And I asked Maya to join me. Carlos, you were at the last show, weren't you?
I was.
That's where I saw you.
Was that Mick's last show then?
That was Mick's last show. And he'd been talking about it. It was on his mind for a while. And I said, Mick, so we started the show. Is this it? He goes, yeah, this is my last show. And I always have this thing, Carlos, I go, you always let somebody give them 24 hours. You get what I'm saying? Because Tim Tutton, who owns the bar, was like, all right, Ben, what are you going to do next? I go, I'm going to give Mick Dumke 24 hours to reconsider. And 24 hours later, he said, nope, I still want to move on. So, Mick, you're my man, but I'm moving on with mine. I think we're going to do some teacher stuff. We're going to be talking about school issues, obviously. Carlos, tell your first time on our show. Welcome to the show. Bright young star here at the Chicago Sun-Times. You did some of the stories about Leon Finney. We'll get into that. But introduce yourself a little bit. Tell folks about yourself. Are you a Chicago kid?
I am a Chicago kid. So I was born on 35th and Damon, across the street from Huck Finn in McKinley Park.
Whoa, Huck Finn. I know it very well.
Yeah. So little blue house that's across the street there. That's where I lived when I was a baby. And then we moved around the southwest side a bit, went to Gage Park, went to closer to Pershing, then lived in Mexico for a bit, came back and moved to Bridgeport then, and that's where I stayed through high school.
What high school did you attend?
I went to Phoenix Military Academy.
That's right, you told me that.
Yeah, it's
so
one of the 6.
How did you and your parents decide on that?
It's a funny story. So when I came back from Mexico, I was going into my sophomore year of high school, and we had been in Mexico for a few years and had no idea how the high school application system worked or anything. So we came back in the summer of 2009 and just was, no clue as to how to move forward with picking a high school. My cousin, my younger cousin Jasmine, she was going to Phoenix and to start out her freshman year, and she mentioned it, and I was like, whatever. All right, sounds good.
So did you have to wear a uniform?
I did, every day.
And did you march? It was just a military atmosphere in the school?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was most prevalent in the morning. We had to have formation outside, and we had companies and made us do push-ups if we were late, stuff like that.
All right, now I'm not going to make any stereotypical observations based on appearance, but except for this one. If I were to look at you right now, I would not think military. Your hair is a little long, you have a beard.
And that was the same case when I was in high school. I would always get in trouble for not cutting my hair, and I would always push it to the limit and then cut my hair and then do it again, like 3 months later or something. But yeah.
And you survived 4 years.
Yeah, it was 3. I went in as a sophomore.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, it was great. It was the teachers were great. The school was really small, and it was mostly half Black, half Latino. And that gave me a great impression of the South Side, the West Side. Made a lot of friends from around the city. And yeah.
Was it difficult to make your way to find Black friends? Was that a gulf I talked about with Sergio all the time? The gulf between Black and white. Was it difficult for you to cross that barrier, so to speak, that boundary, so to speak?
No, I didn't find it difficult at all. It was cool. I mean, I think Phoenix is one of those schools where, obviously, like as you see in any high school, Latino kids hang out with Latino kids, and Black kids hang out with Black kids. But for there was a lot of multiracial friend groups.
Where was it located?
So it's on Western and Adams.
I've been by it a million times.
Yeah, that area of the city is changing quite a bit.
It is changing. The hot dog place, the controversial, what's it
called?
Oh,
yeah, the
Felony Frank's hot dog place is right down the street.
It closed, unfortunately. Now it's like a fish place or something.
Oh.
But it was there when I was in high school.
You were probably eating there all the time.
I only went once, actually, and it was pretty good, but didn't go.
So how'd you find your way to journalism?
It was only until I went to college. So Phoenix didn't have a student newspaper at the time. I did like writing, but I never thought of myself as a journalist or becoming a journalist. So I went to school in California at the Claremont colleges. Went in thinking I was going to study politics. Ended up switching to history. And my second semester, my first year, walked into the student newspaper. They were advertising like we need new writers, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought I'd give it a shot and ended up really liking it.
You got hooked?
I got hooked.
What is it about journalism that hooked you?
I think speaking to the public and with the public about topics that matter to people is really good. I think also as a history major, I realized that as I was digging through archives and periodicals and doing research for papers and stuff, that how media portrays events and what events get covered is super important, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, when people are trying to look back and establish a narrative of what the city or whatever the campus looked like. So I wanted to put in my 2 cents and make sure that the stories I thought were important and that my friends thought were important.
And so how'd you find your way to the Sun-Times?
I got to the Sun-Times so I graduated from school, came back, and bartended and freelanced for a bit. And then I got a job in New York with Newsweek. It was on their digital team, essentially mining the internet for clicks and writing a lot of aggregated stories. And I did that for a bit, did that for about a year. And then this opportunity came up through a new fellowship called Report for America. Essentially, they subsidize a reporter's salary in a local newsroom across the city for a year, and then they extend it for 2 years. So that was the inaugural cohort of students or journalists, that were applying for these positions, and the Sun-Times had an opening through the program, and I applied and thankfully got in.
And so then you came back to your hometown.
Yeah, came back.
And so how long have you been with the Sun-Times now?
It turned a year in June, so it's going on my second year now.
Are you seeing the city in a new way now that you have to report on it? Are you seeing suddenly understanding dynamics that you didn't understand before? Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think trying to, I think growing up in Chicago, you all obviously get like a solid sense of nepotism and corruption, et cetera. But, going through the mud, really, you get to realize how deep things go. And also, I think, I cover a lot of issues relating to housing and gentrification, and I think reporting on it has made me realize that it's more than just about real estate or housing prices. Like when we think of displacement, sometimes it can get a little too abstract or stuck in the stats. Mm-hmm. But talking to people on the ground and how they're fighting to keep their neighborhood, that really impacted me because I was gone for most of my formative years, from 18 to 20 something. So coming back and really understanding how Chicago is changing so fast.
Did you actually see that yourself? Did you have that moment of realization? What was that TV show, D, where Tracy Morgan gets out of prison, and he comes back to Brooklyn, and the original
something OG.
Yeah, and I love the city. Comes out, he can't. When he goes into prison, Brooklyn is one way, and then when he comes out of prison, Brooklyn is completely different. It's gentrified. He's seeing
the last OG.
The last OG. Yeah, the last OG. Sergio Mims is the last OG. Did you have that moment like that? Not that you came out of prison, but that moment when you go, my goodness, I do not recognize this city.
I thought we were going to talk about that, Ben.
No. That's it. He did. Yeah, he really wasn't New York working for Newsweek.
Yeah, I for a little bit, I would come back to Chicago during winter break and sometimes in the summer. But when I came back this last year, I remember. So I live in Pilsen now, which is where my grandma landed in 1960, and she stayed there for a while, but then she left. And now living in the neighborhood where she lived in and trying to understand how that's changing. I think it hit me on moving day, I think, because we were not the only moving truck on the block. Like it was two families moving out on the same block and we were moving in. And that kind of really crystallized things for me because it was like me and my friends.
Do you have this, there's a typical Chicago attitude that I notice, which is, how do I put it? Change happens, get over it. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the way things are. Shut up.
Yeah.
I've heard that kind of sums up a Chicago attitude toward a lot of things. The teachers, to a certain degree, it sums up Chicagoans' attitudes toward teachers who are trying to point out all the things that are wrong with our public schools and begging for some assistance. But it also, Carlos, I think I hear a lot of people talk about that when it comes to the issue of gentrification. Do you subscribe to that notion?
No, not at all. I think, nothing is inevitable. I think people make the rules and people can also change the rules, and I think it's also, I tie that argument in with like when people bring up, oh, well, Pilsen used to be Czech and Irish and Polish and that changed. I think what's different now is the speed of change. I think if you rewind the clock 10 years, Pilsen looked so much different. And 10 years is not a long time. When we think of Pilsen, it's only been 50, 60 years, the way we think of it now. That Mexican community that is there now was pushed out of the near West Side and Maxwell Street when all that was demolished for the highways. And then the Czechs and the Irish and the Polish went westward and went to the suburbs. But that was in, the 40s and the 50s for the most part. That's not a long time. Like people, and I think the argument that like, oh, well, things change. It's funny because like the Czechs and the Polish and other immigrants had like 100 years settled in that neighborhood, and then the Mexicans came, and now in the last 10 years, thousands of families have been displaced. So it's not like before. It's very different because now it's a lot of corporate money coming in.
Yeah, and I would also make this other distinction where, correct, the ethnic background may be different. So it may be someone from Mexico or Central America moving in as opposed to somebody from Europe, Czechoslovakia, etc. But the role the neighborhood played as a port of entry neighborhood is the same. It's just the people who are entering are maybe, look a little different than the people that enter. But they need a place, a destination to go to. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
so that's the fundamental difference. My humble opinion is
absolutely
it's not a port of entry for new immigrants. Well, we've pretty much slammed the doors shut in the age of Donald Trump on new immigrants anyway. But it's now what? How would you describe Pilsen?
Aging. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of when it's tricky because you don't want to sound the death knell in a neighborhood that's still very much alive. But the closer you get to downtown, like past Racine, that's the side of the neighborhood that's east of Racine. That's like super gentrified, and by that I mean singles or couples that make more money than anybody else around them. And I think that was the real deal. I talked to an organizer in Pilsen not too long ago, and he's been there for 40 years. And he said, there were always white kids here, there were always students, there were always musicians, there were always artists. That was never the issue. The issue is when someone comes in that makes 3 times as much as you do a year to rent down the block, then that becomes the issue. So he framed it as a class issue more than a racial one, which I think makes a lot of sense.
It does indeed. Carlos Ballesteros is my guest on Times Reporter. He did a big investigation on Leon Finney. Talk about people been around the city for a long time. Leon Finney. When I first moved to Chicago in 1981, Leon Finney was already a name in community organizing from the Woodlawn area. I remember very early on seeing him give a speech talking about the principles of Alinsky-style organizing. I was very young and impressionable, Carlos, and he made a big impression on me, I can tell you that. Things have changed in terms of Leon Finney. We'll take a little break and talk about it with Carlos when we return.
Tony Preckwinkle, in a series of these forums and debates, I've counted some of your questioners have had to ask 4 or 5 times.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them: ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
All right, everybody, more Ben Joravsky Show in moments, but we have to remind you about something that's going to be happening tomorrow at Sidetrack Bar in Boys Town. It's a discussion with Marianne Williamson. She's going to be there at Sidetrack. Is that correct, Ben?
Oh, that is correct.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let the master take care of it.
That's correct.
Thank you, Robert Mueller. She's going to be in attendance at Sidetrack Bar. The Chicago Reader, they're going to be doing a little debate special here. Maya Dukmasova will be joining as well. It's at Sidetrack Bar. I believe it's off Broadway. Boy, I should have looked up that address before I started talking about this. Sidetrack Bar in Boys Town. Oh, wait. Hold on, do I have? Okay, no, that's the address of the Chicago Reader. All right, it's going to be a fantastic time, though, guys. You should make it out. Ben's going to be there. If you're ever like, boy, I'd really like to shake the hand of Ben Joravsky. Well, tomorrow might be the day.
Okay,
yeah, you know, I'll be there, too.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe I'll wear my tie.
You should wear your tie, all right?
All right, maybe I will.
Marianne Williamson's going to be there. Put a tie on, all right? Good God.
It says here, presidential candidate, like you're wearing a tie. It says here, presidential candidate Marianne Williamson will be in attendance at Mobilize, in addition to several local politicians and organizers. Join reader staff and community members tomorrow, Sidetrack Bar, for a discussion and screening of October 10th's LGBTQ presidential town hall, hosted by no tie wearing Ben Joravsky and Maya Dukmasova. Ben's going to be busy. He's going to be talking to Marianne Williamson again on Friday. So if you missed this event on Thursday, do not worry. I believe we're going to be live streaming this event.
Yes,
we're going to be from the
indeed.
Cards Against Humanity studio. I'd say come on out to the studio, but I don't want to invite a bunch of people and you can't get in. So make sure you check it out on the Facebook video live stream. Ben Joravsky talking with Marianne Williamson again. Ben, you are a busy guy this week.
I am really busy.
Holy
I'm
cow.
running like crazy. Well, Kitty Kurth is a friend of the show, comes on the show a lot. Kitty and Kevin. What do we call them? The political love couple?
Every time they come in here, they're holding hands. Guys, come on, focus.
Come on now. You've been married for 30 years.
Good
Enough with the
Lord,
hand. I
wrap it.
love him. Anyway, they're working for Marianne Williamson. So I've been saying, hey, when are you going to get Marianne Williamson on my show? All right, Ben. So this is what they came up with. We're going to do this over at Cards Against Humanity. It should be from Maya will be with me as well, and interviewing Marianne Williamson. You know, I I was impressed with some of the, I don't know, Carlos, if you have any opinions about what her role in those first couple debates, but I was impressed with some of the things she said. I pointed out, I was like, I've never heard of a mainstream presidential candidate talk about reparations quite the way Marianne Williamson.
Are you nervous at all?
No. Not at all.
Oh, so what are some of the questions? Maybe give us a sample question. I know you've been up doing show prep for this one, right?
Yes, Marianne, who cut your hair?
Don't ask that. But come check it out, Sidetrack Bar in Boys Town. And we're going to be streaming live an interview with Marianne Williams as well. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Benny J, take us home.
I will, but for 10 trivia points, who was I quoting there with who cut your hair? Does anybody know in this studio? Two millennials wouldn't know this, but maybe you, throwback millennial, you're kind of rebel millennial, you might know.
It's from a movie?
Cheech and Chong, man.
Oh.
Who cut your hair? Anyway, whatever. Wait, somebody knows.
Let me check real quick. Yeah, all the millennial listeners are gone.
Wait, I want to ask you my millennial trivia question of the day. All right, so go for it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. Okay, you know they're not going to take away your millennial card, Carlos. For 10 trivia points, Carlos, who is Tyler Blevins?
Tyler? No clue. Not even going to pretend to
Wow.
think about that one.
Do you know him by his nickname, Ninja?
No.
Have you ever heard of Fortnite?
Yes.
What is Fortnite, please?
A video game?
Very good. Give him his millennial card back.
When did you find out about Fortnite?
2 days ago.
Okay. So there you go. So don't worry, Carlos. All good.
I was watching. He was on Trevor Noah's show, and Trevor Noah was playing Fortnite with this guy. I didn't know who he was.
You really still don't. But go ahead.
Apparently I know more than the millennials in this room. So I'd never heard of Fortnite before, and so. They were really into Fortnite, so I looked up Fortnite, and then I looked up Ninja, and I got to Tyler, and I discovered he's huge in the gaming world. I didn't even know there was a gaming world.
Oh, yeah. Millions and millions of dollars in that.
How did I not know this?
Yeah.
Carlos, humorous for a moment. Ben Joravsky, name 3 video games popular among games, including Fortnite. Go ahead.
Fortnite?
2 more.
Okay, Fortnite. What's that other one?
Oh, what's that other
Mario
one?
Brothers.
That is not popular for gamers. Maybe the newer Mario, but I won't take that.
Ms. Pac-Man.
Oh my God, you're done.
Carlos, can you name 3?
Call of Duty, maybe.
Call of Duty.
That's correct.
And that's all I got.
Wow, man, that's my kind of millennial. I like this kid. Anyway, so now I know who, but Tyler Blevins, 14.7 million followers on Instagram, Carlos. Okay? There's a world out there that I am really ignorant. I go on and on about Trump, Chicago politics, teacher strike. These are important issues to me. And I realize that there's millions of millennials out there who are just they don't even know anything about it. What a realization.
Yeah,
anyway,
you're old.
But at least I feel better. Carlos doesn't know who Tyler Blevins is either. All right, you do know who Leon Finney is, which is interesting. You're probably the only
Segway master. Man,
you are the only guy.
That was good.
Wow. Thank you. I've been in the radio game a long time, 3 years. You're the only guy, I would say, who graduated from high school in this decade who does not know who Tyler Blevins is, but does know who Leon Finney is. That's amazing. All right, so tell our listeners who Leon Finney is.
Leon Finney, he is a doctor, a reverend, a doctorate, sorry. Dr. Reverend Leon Finney Jr., 81-year-old pastor down in Woodlawn, son of Leon Finney Sr. of Leon's Barbecue. As you mentioned earlier, trained as a community organizer under Saul Alinsky in the 70s. 60s and 70s, yeah. Super influential. I think he was on the CHA board, the Chicago Housing Authority board. He was on the City Planning Commission. He had some role at Chicago State University. His church, the Metropolitan Apostolic Community Church on 41st and King Drive, incredibly historic building. He took it over in 2003 with his congregation. As our reporting has laid out, unfortunately, Dr. Finney has unfortunately, jig is up in a lot of ways. It seems as that way. So Dr. Finney made some powerful friends along the way throughout the decades, and through his nonprofits ended up amassing an incredible collection, a portfolio of real estate holdings in Woodlawn that we still really don't know how big, but in the hundreds of, probably of properties. And also, his nonprofits managed to snag very sweet contracts with the Chicago Housing Authority to manage about a quarter of all of its units across the city. So we're talking 4,500 units across 100 and something buildings. Those contracts gave the Woodlawn Community Development Corporation, Finney's nonprofit, $170,000 a month to manage those properties. Now, what happened and what our reporting has revealed is that in October of last year, so a year this month, Woodlawn Community Development Corporation filed for bankruptcy after the IRS placed a lien on its bank accounts for owing millions in payroll taxes. Payroll taxes being what your employer withholds from your paycheck, mostly Social Security, Medicare, and stuff like that. So Woodlawn was being charged by the IRS of withholding about $4 million worth of payroll taxes. So these taxes that were withheld from employee paychecks, not sent out to the IRS, but instead were placed God knows where. So the nonprofit files bankruptcy. Of course, bankruptcy proceedings are super public and, just open up all the books. And what ended up happening is Judge Carol Doyle, she's a judge at the Illinois Northern Bankruptcy Court, decided to appoint what's called a trustee to take over the nonprofit in March because, in her words, Dr. Finney and his affiliates were being accused of mismanagement, fraud, and self-dealing. And she didn't trust that they would take care of the company and pay creditors, essentially. So once the appointment of the trustee happened in March, that's when things really got bad.
And so your article ran, or 3 articles, I want to say. You and Tom Schuba, was a joint investigation. And I remember it was a Sunday. It was a big spread in the Chicago Sun-Times. And this is big news to people like me because, as I was saying earlier, Carlos, Leon Finney was a very important man in the city of Chicago in the 80s and the 90s and into the O's. As you point out, he had strong political allies, Mayor Daley, Mayor Rahm. He was like a go-to guy that these mayors would turn to when they were ever in trouble and issues that could be remotely criticized along racial lines. He was their one of their chief black allies, and he could show up at a press conference. He played a role similar to the one Juan Rangel played for Hispanic Chicago.
Sure.
So a loyal ally that could be trotted out for a press conference. And so Leon Finney, in return, was, you're right, I think he was on the Chicago State Board. He was named to various organizations, institutions. So it's sort of the toppling of a great figure in Chicago lore. When now you were not the one who went to the church, because there's a follow-up story. Was it Schuba that lost that? What, you flipped a coin or something and he lost, so he had to go to
No, so the big piece dropped Sunday, and we weren't hearing back from the Reverend, and we wanted to give him a chance, at least in person, to talk to us. So and we also wanted to see if he would address what we had reported to his congregation, because the church is facing foreclosure, which was also reported in that story. So Tom Schuba, unfortunately, he worked Sundays and I didn't. And so it fell on him to go on.
Damn. Too bad, huh?
Tom, too bad. Yeah. No. So, yeah. And then he was promptly kicked out.
He was kicked out. What, they say, leave? Just like when...
You should bring Tom on the show. He'll tell you exactly what they said.
Definitely going to bring Tom Schuba in addition to co-writing these stories with Carlos, is, as I call it, the reefer writer at the Chicago. Man knows more about reefer, D, than anyone I know. Well, maybe Dennis knows more about reefer.
Yeah, he's the reefer writer at the Sun-Times. I'm the reefer smoker at the Sun-Times.
Unbiased opinion, Tom is the best beat weed writer in the city.
All right, so we're going to have to bring him on. And we'll give him a trivia test about reefer, huh?
Give him that Cheech and Chong one we did earlier.
That's correct. I'll ask him the Cheech and Chong stuff. Anyway, good stuff. Have there been any new, well, I shouldn't ask you because you probably wouldn't reveal it anyway. You got any new stories on this front coming out?
Yeah. Sometime early next week, another one. And our latest one came out last week. maybe 2 weeks ago, I forgot. But it was about a public housing development on 72nd and Racine called Anchor House. And we found that, as part of the bankruptcy proceedings, we found a report that showed that around $90,000 was diverted out of that public housing development into, $50,000 went to Finney's church, the Met. $4,000 went to him directly, and another $25K went to his radio station, Urban Broadcast Media.
Chicago, man. That's Leon Finney. Like I said, when I got here in 1981, he was a big deal in this town.
I'm curious to hear, where was the speech or?
You know, it was a speech, and 1980. Where was it? I want to say, it's okay. You're talking about stuff. How many years ago was that? 1981. You weren't even born yet, and young Dennis wasn't even born yet.
Is this for 10 trivia points?
Yeah,
is he about to stump you?
He is going to stump me because I want to say it was at Northeastern Illinois University, the Southside branch, which is roughly, where is that? Like 39th and King Drive, around there. I think that's where it was. We were talking about stuff that happened a long time ago, and I think that was in my marijuana smoking days. So I have an excuse. Right?
Oh, boy. I don't even want to imagine what you'd be like.
Oh, man, come on. We're going to see Leon Finney, man. But I was really impressed. I got to tell you, he was telling these Alinsky stories, and I was younger than you are now, Carlos. And I was like, God, this is so cool. I'm in the city of Chicago, and this guy was trained by Saul Alinsky, and and I went afterwards. I went up, Mr. Finney. My name is Ben Joravsky. Oh yeah, great kid, beat it. So anyway, it was he was telling these stories about fighting the University of Chicago, and then I watched the trajectory of his career, Carlos, and watched him just sort of join the establishment and the very institutions and entities that he was battling and organizing against. He just either they absorbed him or he absorbed them. And how he became a voice for Establishment Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my welcome to Chicago band moment. There were many of those. Anyway, ancient history indeed. Carlos, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. We're definitely going to I'm going to get Tom Schuba's number, the weed writer. We're going to get him in here. Mr. Reefer, all right? Get him talking about reefer in the city of Chicago. Always a favorite topic.
Maybe he has some.
Okay, that's not. He's a legitimate reporter. He's not going to give you a joint, all right? Come on, D.
Carlos works here. He's like, man, I come in the back of the studio. These guys are animals. Back by the bathroom. They're crazy.
Yeah, I know. Things about the bathroom. You never know what's going to go down. Anyway, Sergio Mims, outstanding. Everybody, run, don't walk. Let's see Dolomite this weekend. I know I'm going to see it.
Don't see Joker, according to Sergio Mims.
Don't see Joker. He gave 2 thumbs way down.
Nice. Yeah. A.O. Scott in the Times also panned it. I remember reading about that.
Have you seen the Joker yet?
No. I think I'm going to wait.
You're going to wait.
Yeah.
Are you going to see Dolomite?
I didn't even know that was happening, but yeah. Was it at the Siskel or something?
I don't know where it's going to open. That's the thing. It's going to be out for about a month, and then it goes to Netflix. So I want to see it. He said it was worth seeing on the big screen. Anyway.
And our Ben Joravsky Show question of the summer of 2019. Have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that either. I was also going to wait for that one, too.
Well, you haven't... Get 10 push-ups right now. You still haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I'm waiting.
All right. Well, for what? Christmas?
I don't know.
The director cut is coming to Netflix, but it'll be like an hour longer than it is.
Wait for the bootleg.
There you go.
Anyway, sometimes a writer, Robert Herguth, was here as well, explaining about the Ultimate Man's Cave, the cigar store in the Southwest
Great
side.
story.
Yeah, it is. I know. I love that story. As soon as I saw it, I called him up. Get on the show.
Check out the FBI files in the Sun
Woke up
Times.
this morning. It's very Sopranos vibes when I read that.
Wow, that's good. He was singing from the Sopranos.
That's awesome.
That is very
Got
good.
yourself a cigar.
He does not know who Tyler Blevins is, but he could sing the song for the Sopranos. Carlos, we'll bring you back with Tom Schuba.
Thanks,
and we'll bring the bong as well. All right, anyway, great show. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, looking very dapper, I don't know. It looks like a young John Travolta over there. The pride and joy of Alton, Illinois.
I'm bald.
Dr. D, give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash, and buy yourself a new tie. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Just bought this one. And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download podcasts. Hey, downloaders, You know we live stream this show, right? It's true. We do. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time. Once again, at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel, and we now live stream on Facebook at Benny J Show. BENNY, the letter J Show, on both Facebook and Twitter. Give us a like, follow, share, review, whatever you want to do. We'll see you tomorrow.